rise, open the meeting, say Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Bam, 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 bam. Well, meeting minutes August 19th, 2019.
Not Darren in here. We'll skip.
We'll deal with that. We'll table that. Old business. What I'd like to do, if we could, if I'm correct in reading this, I would like to start with what Andrew references, number 3, the stone cow bone frog permit. We'll just get that out of the way pretty quickly, I'm guessing, unless there are significant questions. Did all the other departments, agencies have a chance to review and sign off?
Yes, I have the comments on all of them. So we do have a sign off on each one of them.
Okay. Alright. Do you, anybody else here have any more questions on that? Is that standard, the $5 per participant? Why are we asking that now?
That was the planning board recommendation.
Yeah, I don't think that we have any standing to
No, we
make
don't.
that a condition.
Alright.
No, we don't.
That will not be a condition of the permit. Maybe yeah, they're already paying for pretty much all the other services that the town provides, whether it's detail, I think, do they pay for the EMS personnel on site that the day of?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
They
so,
pay for local details and they pay for service there.
so in my opinion, I appreciate the recommendation, but at least based on precedent and other things, I wouldn't even want to start that right now. That's all, that's.
Yeah, that was just their recommendation and.
No, I appreciate you being here to give that, because now I have a better understanding of it. And that's something we might consider if we want in the future special event bylaw we're thinking about doing, but we're not there yet. Yes, sir.
The planning board has no jurisdiction to add fees to something, do they?
No, again, I think like Mary Ann was saying, they were just making a recommendation that they thought this would be something that we, the Board of Selectmen, could request. I don't want to speak for Greg or Dylan, but I'm personally not inclined to try something like that at this stage in our special event process. But if Greg or Dylan have anything to say on that, I'd like them to speak up.
I've got, no real opinion on it. We've never considered charging fees for it. To the extent that it impacts the town, they sponsor those impacts for the details, so police, fire, EMS. They go out of the way to bus people typically from other places, so we don't impact the traffic with, you don't really notice the congestion in the commons. There's no reason for us to try to line our pocket with their money. And even when we do finally make a special event permit that's out there, I would not want to try to get into a fee structure for it, because that's just crazy. Someone has 60 people, someone has 10,000 people, where do you draw the line, how much do you ask for it, and it just, the idea of the permit was supposed to be to make sure that things are safe, not to make money off it. And I don't think it puts a big impact. If there was maybe some fee, but there is a fee attached to the permit anyways to cover the expense of going through the town bodies, but other than that, there's no reason for it. And especially until there is any provision voted by the town, we have no right to ask for any money, I don't think.
I agree with what you're saying.
Greg spoke beautifully.
Okay.
I agree 100%.
Aren't I a Purdy speaker?
Do we have a motion on this?
I move that we approve the special event permit for the Bone Frog.
I'm gonna abstain from the vote.
Understood?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them why, or?
I work for Carter and Stevens.
Okay. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion? Anybody in the crowd? All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you much. Been approved? One down. We'll go back to the number one. We have a discussion with the Southbury Common Committee regarding basketball hoop. I'm guessing, Marianne, you're here to kind of represent them on that a little bit? I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. I do recall, and I think in this packet there, yeah. Okay, we have, are these, okay, these are addresses, all right. We have a good number of people that wrote in from the community, not from the Southbury Common Committee.
I have two specific, just for the Southbury Common,
Okay,
and those two are very good. It's just for the Common.
Okay.
Just for the Common,
yep.
which I think
So-
you have. I submitted them.
Well, that's what yeah, I think we got, you're right, not everything we received was strictly about the basketball.
I'm-
We
I'm-
received a lot about
Yeah, I'm
the
here
whole question.
just, I'm here just for the park.
So, let's start with you just presenting your position regarding the thoughts or requests about pursuing a basketball court of some sort at Nornay Park. My understanding was requested that it be towards the back near the rep, so I'm just mentioning.
Well,
What's your thoughts?
Well, you have the two letters from the two direct abutters. What was going on when we had one that wasn't even put there by the town of Barre.
The previous one?
Right, it wasn't put there by the town, it was just dragged in.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Oh, it was a similar portable one, it wasn't
Yeah,
a post,
yeah,
okay. I
okay.
don't recall the,
And I've given you a copy of the abutters that live there, and explaining it as a nightmare with the kids. It ended up being a hangout place, ended up being alcohol, ended up being drugs, needles. And this poor man couldn't even go to sleep at night without calling the police. The other lady was vandalizing the bus. They were drinking inside the bus, playing in there, whatever else they do. I've got the two letters I've given to you.
yeah.
And we have none of that now. And we don't want to go back. Number two is, we are a committee that's worked really hard on this park, and this is like the third time we keep getting pulled in for this, even after going to town meeting with a unanimous vote of no. And it just keeps coming back and back and back.
Well, most of the town meeting stuff voting is actually about that bylaw about not playing in the
This
street.
one here was
There was a warrant to actually
Selectmen
put
Norway
the,
Park.
okay, I
Twice
forgot.
now.
Awesome,
And it was voted unanimous, no, nobody even voted for it. But the other thing is I don't understand, because we do have a committee that has taken 10 years and volunteers to produce this park, so I don't even know why we keep discussing this. And it's not gonna solve the issue in the neighborhood, because that's not really the issue.
I'm not necessarily denying whether it would affect the neighborhood
Mhm.
issues that are a couple blocks over, wherever they're at.
Yeah.
There's two reasons why I think it came back up and why I said, let's just take one more look at it, okay? This is coming from me, not from Greg or Dylan, so I don't wanna,
I know.
the first reason was, it is one of our more densely populated neighborhoods.
Mhm.
And we do not have a park set up down there. Not just basketball. I'm talking about a park where you can also bring your younger kids with swings and seesaws or whatever else you want to put in there. We don't have that down there. So I was hoping to talk about these options, like, and that's where I was thinking, what would the neighborhood want? So it wasn't so much just the South Barron Common Committee, but more the people. What do the people
thing is,
want?
If you'd like to do that, that's wonderful. We just ask you just don't put it there.
Right,
I
but,
mean, the town has.
so the
defined it.
discussion is where, and
I
at the
don't know.
time, but that's the point, we need a place.
Well,
And that's the only place the town owns that looks like it's a viable spot to put a small thing in the back that could be, if properly fenced, locked, lighted, and patrolled by the police. Historically, I don't think it was properly patrolled by the
the
police.
police were down there all the time.
There's a difference between being patrolled versus being called in. The intent is you're preventing it from getting to the point of being called in. And so these are just discussion points. I'm not trying to push it. I'm just saying, if you get up in Barre Common, the North Common, whatever we want to call it, you only have, Broad Street to get to Ruggles Lane and all of that playground equipment.
They only
So
have high-
this
they only
area
have
has
high-
that.
They only have High Plains, which is the same amount of going up to Ruggles Lane from here. And we have the swing sets, we have the basketball courts, and we have the soccer field. Same distance from that park to High Plains that it is from here to Broad Street. It's walking distance.
Is it the same distance or just walking distance? Because to me, I think I recall it being a
walking
much
distance.
further walk.
That's walking distance. We walk down to the mail every day. It's
Well, I'm
just
not saying
walking
you're
distance.
wrong, I'm just, I've gotta ask the
You have
question.
to understand, he can't walk now, so for him, he's limited. I'm just trying to put some lightness.
I got you.
I don't have.
I tend to do that and
I don't
I,
have light for this situation, so.
well, all this was bringing up what would that neighborhood like? Would they like something like this to bring their kids? And if so, maybe we can start looking at options. That was where I was coming from to start with. I understand that there are other things going on that initiated the topic. But I also agree, I'm not sure that that would fix the topic at all that started the whole issue.
And I know it won't.
I'm not trying to, I'm saying, I'm not trying to argue that point with you, because I don't disagree with you. But it did bring to light to me that with the dense population there, that it would be worth it for us to try to find a place to put something for those families to be able to go and do that and feel comfortable that it's something to do, someplace to hang out. We need to put it in something that's highly visible. Otherwise, it's not as easy to patrol, and you will get other people going in there and turn it into just a place that I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not, thankfully, Worcester and other places where you just go to the back of some schools and it's full of needles. But the way that doesn't happen is you gotta put it out in the open, easy to see.
That one was in the open, easy to see.
We're in a different time of life. When that was going on is not what's going on now. And we have different police, we have different people in town, we have different electronic means of capturing what's going on. I mean, we're in a different world than we were back then. So I'm just saying we need to look at it that way. It's not the same situation as it was then. Now, I'm not saying we still don't have people in this town or in this state or country that are still going to abuse every situation they can find, and they're going to try to sneak in and do things. But when you put it out in the open and not behind a building or back into some development where nobody can see it except the neighbors, well, that's where they're going to go and create the mess. But if you put it right there where people driving down the street can call anytime they see something, it's a different story. And that's why it came to my mind like, that's not a bad spot. But we would have to figure it out. Maybe it's working with another privately owned land near there that can create the same situation. We can work an agreement where the town says this is worth purchasing some land, working out a deal where that owner says, you know, we see the benefit to the neighborhood, and they say, let's put something here. So that's really where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to push it as if this is the only path to take. That's not where I just wanted to start the conversation because it was what was brought to our attention as a request. I figured it was a good way to start the conversation on a playground for South Barre that works for that neighborhood. specifically something for younger kids even, not just adults that either just got out of college or just got out of high school, and because it's the younger kids have a harder time walking, as far as you're saying, you know, if you got your 4 and 5-year-olds and all that you'd like to be able to go something a little closer. That's all I'm suggesting. So I brought it up for that reason. Secondly, I brought it up because I do have a constituent with a concern, and I'm trying to see what we can do to help her in other ways. And sometimes a little of this and a little of that, and it all comes together and helps create a benefit. Not just for her, but also for anybody else in that neighborhood. And I think both parties in that situation almost need to kind of get to a point where they can meet in the middle and then back up and quit trying to get the other one upset because they disagree with something. They got to find some way of, I give a little, you give a little. And right now that it's just hit. So I'm hoping we can work through some of that too, just to resolve that issue for now. But I still felt like some type of playground down in that neighborhood was something that would help this town and help that neighborhood. So I just wanted to explain where I was coming from.
Yeah.
But I did see all the letters and I totally understand.
Well, I'd like you to read the two that I,
Read them out loud, you saying?
well, I don't care to read them out loud, but the two
Oh.
specifically for the comment. That's really what I'm representing. I
Yeah.
don't know anything about the neighborhood. And the other thing, you said we're in a different place and we've changed from back then. We have changed from back then because of the South Barry comment and all the volunteers. That's why it's changed.
No, that's part of it.
That's not
We
part
have
of
a
it.
completely new police chief too.
No, they were, the other.
Things have changed is all I'm
They were-
saying.
they
We are in a
were-
different place than we were.
I was getting help from the other, police group
I
also.
don't
though.
deny that. I'm not knocking the previous police chief or police officers. I'm just saying it has changed.
Yes, it has. For the better.
Right, and I don't disagree. People taking care of it makes a huge difference. And you've done, and the members of the South Barry Common Committee and the other volunteers, done amazing things with that place. I can't tell you how much, when I drive by that every time, I look at what you guys do and just take
That's
care
right.
of it.
And I appreciate
And
you
I-
saying that, but so I don't understand why you guys kept stepping on us actually. You know, pushing something else that you know we want to keep it the way it is. And that's really what you're doing. You know, if you found another area around there for the playground, that's just wonderful. But you kind of,
I'm trying to pull you into the discussion so nothing is done without you being involved. I'm not trying to ignore you. So that's why you keep being asked to be part of this. Because maybe you even know the neighborhood better and can suggest a place, say, hey, maybe if you work with this one or you work with this one, we can find this. You know, that's all I'm trying to do is, I understand maybe Nornay Park isn't ideal or even what people in the neighborhood want. But that doesn't mean they don't want a playground, they just don't know where to put it. But maybe if we start talking about it, we can all get together and figure out what would work. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm not really trying to push anything down somebody's throat and say it's going there. Because the truth is, I can't do that. As a matter of fact, nobody's going to support me if I tried to do that, based on everything I've seen written and provided to me. So I'm not pushing Nornay Park anymore. I've gotten enough response since our last meeting to feel I see where the town is at in this regard, or at least the vocal portion of the town. So so I'm just trying to say, okay, what's the next step?
So,
I do know we've acquired, conservation land in the back as to 20 or 30 acres. I don't know if that's anything that you can use.
I'm not sure, because I know they changed the designation from conservation recreation to conservation. Or,
passive recreation. So, I mean, just looking at proximity right now, I think the place that makes the most sense is to, you know, if we want to invest in, you know, improvements to recreation, I think that the High Plains Park is the place to look. It's right up the street from Nornay Park. It's really just that High Plains Street that goes right up to it. But I think that the best way to do that is to improve the signage and improve the walkability to
I
the
was gonna
downtown.
say, there's no sidewalks to get
There's
all the
no
way there
sidewalk,
from
right.
Nornay Park
But-
neighborhood.
Right, but it might make the most sense to to invest in sidewalks and signage. So that way people know that it's there, people can walk there. It's gonna be I think it's gonna be the most cost-effective and the best way to bring the best value to that. Plus, you're not duplicating the effort of a park that serves that High Plains neighborhood, but you're able to connect that in with the rest of Southbury. So I think from a development standpoint, I think that's gonna be the best place to target.
How is it for a security standpoint?
From a security standpoint, you really have it in a dense residential area, so it's kind of right in the backyards of a number of people who are gonna have the eyes on it, and it's town property. We can put some sort of monitoring camera system, whether it be a trail cam or a remote camera on a stick just to monitor the area, but, I think that that's probably gonna be our best option, even if it's not that you're gonna have cars driving past it all the time. Because I would think that the people in that neighborhood would probably want to make sure that investment is taken care of.
Yeah, and it's fenced in too, where the little ones play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, I'm
think
open
that's
to that,
something
but I
we
do
can-
think it's something that we should look at
Mhm.
helping to improve that neighborhood and maybe signage, maybe just adding a couple newer, I forget what you structured, but the toys?
Right.
What is it?
Yeah.
I just can't come up with the right word, but whether it's swings, things like that, upgrade it a little or refinish some of the stuff we have that might be getting old. The idea of upgrading, one, I know we're still pursuing, we haven't gotten it, the Main Street, Vernon Street, Southbury Road intersection. We've been talking about sidewalks, but I know we're also talking about water and sewer upgrades at some of the piping's old, so we need to try to get all the funding together to make it work. But when we upgrade that, if we upgrade, say even High Plains Park, and we can see what we can do with some of the other residential areas where there are state funds to help with upgrading homes and bringing neighborhoods back to life. I understand that the owner of the Wildwood Reload, I think, is still working the demolition of that building and to bring in a new building that might help him in his business. But I also guess it's gonna clean it up. It won't look like such a, so the idea is we put these pieces together, and so I'm just trying to also explain why this playground is part of that picture to me, is all of this will just help spin that and bring that right back to life. And so I just wanna, that's where I'm coming from. I just want you to, sometimes maybe I don't verbalize my vision as well, but I'm seeing these little pieces all come together, and all of a sudden, that neighborhood's revitalized, and not only that, all the people that own that property, their property goes up. Because they got the nice sidewalks, they got the nice playground access, so that's just the bigger picture in my mind that I've been thinking about and trying to figure out how to make this work. And don't get me wrong, I understand Nornay Park and it's beautiful. I don't think it needs to be upgraded to help this picture. It just fit in my head, that's all. It just fit oh, that would work. So I will push it. I just wanted to talk about it. I don't know if Greg, you want to add any more to the...
In general, a lot of small towns like ours, you have an elementary school like we do that has a playground, and people would travel to use that playground. We talk about giving the kids in this neighborhood, we're talking about a very small percentage of citizens in the town trying to make this hoop available to them when everyone else still drives miles to go to any playgrounds or basketball hoops. So I don't want to make too big an issue about trying to fit a basketball hoop in for a few kids in a neighborhood. It seems that the ones in the neighborhood so far have found a way to put a basketball hoop up. We've had plenty of comments from the neighbors, like I asked for, support. We have support for the basketball hoop, not against it, in Trafalgar Square. People are finding their ways to play basketball if they want to, and that's I think, more typical. People have a hoop in their driveway, something they do on their own. The basketball hoop at Rice Park is used often, multiple times a day. People travel to it. It's not, it was neighborhood kids when my kids were in school, some of the neighborhood kids at that age played basketball there, but there are not any kids around to do it. They all still come from wherever. People will get to the basketball hoops. They don't have to have walking distance, and 90% of the population of this town will not have walking distance, even if we build a new one. So I don't want to put too much effort into this. It's not like we're trying to appease a large chunk of the population, or that there's a lot of people asking for this. You know, it's nice to have a park and a playground if one fits somewhere, but it's not, you know, the basketball side of that's less of a concern for me, because people that play basketball can travel to do so. They're old enough to walk further, or they're old enough to drive. And it's nice if it's convenient, but if it's not, I don't want to be pushing it.
Okay.
Sounds like a nice long-term vision, but not something that seems very pertinent now.
I hear you. It won't happen if we don't start it. And so that was the idea, is to start it so we can start building that plan. You know, if there is a good spot in either neighborhood, South
Right.
Barre, High Plains, however you want to parcel up that area.
There is a playground, isn't there, up on School Street in South, off of High and Peach? Isn't there a playground up there?
That's the High Plains, the
With
old
those
elementary
fields,
school,
yeah,
right?
there is-
Soccer field, a big
But-
basketball court.
And is the playground equipment as well, or not?
Yes, swing set.
I mean,
Actually,
so-
the swing sets came from the Roger Langley School.
So when you look at it that way, we
Yeah.
do have a playground area in South Barre and a playground area at Ruggles Lane in North Barre. We do have two playground areas. We could improve upon those areas or do something like that would make more sense than trying to open up a new space, I think. A lot easier, a lot less hassle, and you know, people already know where it is. We've got it.
So, I truly appreciate your time.
I do, I have one more topic. So-
The other letter
Yeah.
regarding
Just wanted to-
funding and
I
questions
just wanted
about
to
that.
clarify that.
Yes.
So that, the letter regards the fact that it was torn down by the town, but it was fundraising and donations,
Yeah, I
and
mean, the
they
comment
put everything
was
back up and
made-
put it all together.
The comment was made that, well, we buy plants and stuff for South Barre, so why don't we buy them up here? The town does not supply us with plants, mulch, trees, anything in South Barre, it's all donations. But, you know, we have been getting the $500 from,
For the porta
finance,
potty.
which we're grateful for the porta potty, which we say share with the Quabbin Community Band and any other function that happens there. That's the only funding that, everything else we get is raised, or we try to get something from the cultural, or, you know. So I know you were talking about hiring a landscaper. So my thought was, if you were gonna hire one, hopefully you'd include us.
Could,
So they
what I
could-
would ask
They also
is,
could come down and help us weed down there, and also Berry Plains.
could you provide a list to Andrew of the things you would like to see us include in the scope for a landscaper to do that?
We just really need upkeep, because.
Well, that's what I mean,
Right,
'cause
frequency,
maybe he
types
needs
of
more like
duties.
quantity,
Yeah.
like how
Yeah.
much is to be upkept by them and
Yeah.
how much are you gonna
Usually,
do?
the spring they update, you know, and then in the fall you kind of cut down. So it's mostly just upkeep, because we've got everything in that needs to go there.
So, it's not like a weekly or monthly thing?
No, no.
It's like a
That's what
twice a
he-
year thing
that's
that
what
you're
he said,
saying?
Like weekly, they don't need to do that weekly.
So you're talking, bring someone in the spring and get it started, they
Yeah,
come in
they
the
get
fall
it-
and get it prepped for
Yeah, they
winter.
get everything cut down, and maybe gets a little more mulch. If you don't need the mulch, they just kind of fluff it up.
And this is what I was talking about the last meeting,
Yeah.
about figuring out what we need to do up here. We don't need someone in there pruning bushes every week or pruning trees
Right.
every week, but, yeah, I agree, something in the spring and fall.
And then sometimes
That's a
maybe-
pattern I could live with without trying to investigate what needs to be done.
Well, it's,
It's typical of any home, you do your spring cleanup and get
Yeah.
things set,
Maybe
set
like
in the
in the
fall.
middle
you-
of
and I
July.
misstated well, I shouldn't even say misstated, I outright said something that was wrong last time about the comment up here.
We
And
said
the size of the
we said-
height of, it was just this end, there's that one or two bushes that are real high and look all
Oh.
scraggly. For some reason, my mind was remembering it as like a whole row all the way down that brick pathway.
It looks very nice now.
And so.
Those two bushes
I'm
and the
just
errands have to go, they're dead.
Being honest,
They
I
shouldn't be there.
misrepresented that, and that was
Those errands
a
need
bad
angles.
memory. It wasn't an intent to
You
misrepresent,
know,
so I
they can't-
apologize.
Nothing can survive, there's no water drainages, no.
Maybe-
But my idea is,
I agree.
Maybe
with
like-
you, I just need to, if we can get the scope together, I would like to
in
include
July,
all these other
maybe
areas.
there might be a little bit of weeding, and then maybe now in September, it's gonna be time to cut things down. So basically, it's not like all summer long, you need somebody.
And I'm with you on that, I
Yeah.
agree. So,
I'd like to yank those two evergreens out of those urns and have annuals going there every year. 'Cause they just-
where? Up here?
Yeah, because they're just dead. They're in a closed container. There's no drainage. you know.
Is that
there's-
like a little tree?
Yeah,
Kinda
there are
like-
little
yeah.
shrubs in there, just,
Yeah.
they're just, one's completely dead, the other one's half dead, and
Yeah.
that looks ridiculous. There's no way they can flourish in that closed container, I don't believe.
I think they
Unless-
could like a bonsai if they were maintained from the beginning, but
Right.
they missed too many seasons of proper maintenance, they died in place, I think. But I don't know enough
it doesn't
about it,
look
so
like
this
there's
is a
drainage set up,
professional needs to
so.
figure that out.
Yeah.
So I would support what
When
you're
you
saying.
get a ton of
or
rain, I
Lance.
think it just sits there in the soil and they get oversaturated. I don't think there's any way for it to drain off, and there's certainly no one
That might be.
watering it when it's dry, and some sort of hardy annual plants might be wiser to plant them in the spring and, you know, put some different bulbs and everything at different times of the year. Something easy, or plants, it's not my thing, so.
Well, it's not gonna
But-
really grow in a pot. It needs.
No, yeah,
It needs
it's-
to spread out, especially a tree, little tree like that.
Yeah, that's why I say some annuals that you replace every year, you don't,
Yeah.
you know, they're
Yeah.
meant to have the season and that's it. And that way, it's always new and always different too, you can always mix it up. Shouldn't be a big investment to do that. And would have a better idea on that. But-
My wife jokes I'm the only one in the family with a black thumb.
Do you have anything more you'd like to add to that? And again, I apologize if anything previously said was misrepresented.
Yeah,
Um,
I just,
It was coming from some invoices I've read before,
Yeah, because those-
and I may have misread them or misremembered them,
those
so.
are reimbursements of my money I've already spent. You know, like buying plants or whatever for the park.
Well, that's my point, though. If
Yeah.
you're being reimbursed and the town's paying for that,
No, it's coming out of donation funds.
are you saying
Yeah.
somebody's donating to it like a trust fund? There's
Out of
like-
gift account.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Gift account.
I didn't realize we
Yeah.
had that set up, so
Yeah.
that's where I was getting confused with.
Yeah, I know you were, but I just didn't want
The
to.
$500 I knew were for porta potties. I didn't realize there was another accounting line item you were,
Yeah,
so thank you for clearing that up. I was reaching from an inaccurate memory.
okay,
So, thank you for coming in.
yeah.
When we go back to our ill-fated conversation a year ago about the Christmas and the Common Committee and wanting to bring it into the town and have us run the funds, this is what you have to do, is set up a gift account and have them do stuff and invoice it through the town. That's why I say it's better off to just leave it with the committee. Then we don't have to do any of the money handling. But once we do, then we're stuck with it and doing that process.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. And I'm just gonna sit here and listen, and I'm here to, support Ms. Musgrave. Did I say it? Yes.
Okay.
For conservation.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this right now? Yes, Mary Jane?
I have a letter from Barre and Triplo, March 18th, 2005, to Mr. Baird regarding the Phoenix Plaza. Enclosed, please find the executed deed for the former Nane building. Pursuant to my conversation with Ms. Lino, my father would appreciate being involved in the formation and the dedication of the park. His wish is to dedicate the park to the immigrants that worked in the former Berrywell building. I have included an acceptance form to be signed by the Selectmen. It goes on, from Catherine Triplo. The second page, the plan deed, to be kept and used as a public park in perpetuity for the public good.
What's the date on that document?
March 18, 2005. I gave packets to
I
the
know.
three of you.
I don't want people to think it's a letter that was just written today that was supposed to be awarding
Gotcha.
something or doing anything with.
I gave packets and it's enclosed.
I know, I'm aware of that. I was
He was
asking
just
for
trying to get it out
posterity
to
for
the
public so
people
they
on
can
the
understand
camera.
that this is not a current issue.
It's how we obtained the land.
Yes.
I understand that. But the way you read it, it sounds like it's being gifted now and looking to be named now. So I want to make sure that
I
people
thought I had the
understand
date.
this is from 2005, so.
Did I not mention the date?
I did not hear it before, that's why I asked. So maybe you did and I missed it.
Apparently, we're pretty good at forgetting things. I
I'm
apologize.
doing too many things at once, unfortunately.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
We did name the park Nornay Park as he requested. It is dedicated to the immigrants of South Barre and the Barry World workers. That's all I need.
And it
So,
seems
I
to be
mean, we
used for
did
the
that.
public good, so I
And it is
think
being
it's
used for
certainly
public
meeting
good.
the,
We have a lot of people
Meeting the
down there
spirit.
who really appreciates the concerts on the weekends. And we have little kids coming, and it's been a really great thing for the community.
Seems like it's growing.
It is growing.
I was
We
gonna
have
say, every
people
time I go by now, if I'm like, happen to be during a it's like,
let me ask,
who want to sell hot dogs, and I'm like, you really do? They're like, yes, let me work. I'm like, okay.
let me ask you a question. Don't you think that perhaps maybe a slide and a swing set might be nice for young kids down there when, if the parents want to come sit or enjoy things to keep them busy during the concert? Not necessarily basketball, which I understand, that's,
Mhm.
I've seen it, I brought across from my house sometimes too. But, you know, a slide and a set of swings goes a long way to keep kids busy for a long time, and they're easy to maintain. They're not that expensive to install, and it gives a little more use, it gives people that come with their kids a way to keep the kids entertained while they enjoy the park as well. And it doesn't create, you know, you know, you're not gonna have teenagers down there drinking and smoking, hanging out in the swing sets.
Right,
They got better things to do. Just a thought.
just a thought. I,
That's
Yeah.
something that could add down there, which might add to the park, which wouldn't, I think, bring an offense to anybody. And I think it's important, if you did add, you do it in some way that everyone agrees with, and
mhm,
hard to be against a swing set and a slide,
yeah.
but.
so, anything further? Yes, Mary Jane?
I was misrepresented. I did not have the article on the warrant for the basketball hoop in Nonay Park. The word was area, and it was misrepresented in the town meeting. And when I go out to get signatures, I don't appreciate it when somebody stops me from getting signatures and interrupting me getting signatures. It's not fair. If I'm doing that, and I have the right to do it, don't discourage the person I'm talking to about giving a signature. It doesn't say for the park, it doesn't say anything, it just says she can speak. If she can have 100 signatures or 10 signatures, she can speak at the town meeting. If I don't get the signatures, I can't speak. They are not signing to say yes or no to the article. They're signing just so that I can speak.
Yep. Understood.
It's not fair.
And so far, you've gotten your signatures every time, so you've had your opportunity to speak.
It's difficult.
This ability to speak in America these days is becoming more and more difficult. It doesn't matter where you stand. So, we've got to keep fighting for the ability to speak, though. You don't have to agree, but you got to make sure someone can also speak their mind. That's my opinion. What I'd like to do is table this. I would like to, and I'm not saying for the next meeting, but I would like to start coordinating some type of maybe neighborhood or Southbury Common Committee, working with the neighborhood, working with us to see about adding to High Plains, the park up there, adding some signage that you think would look nice, not just a garden stake and almost a no parking sign, size sign that says, oh, there's a park down here. Nice decorative signs, come up with something that says, this is what we have to offer, In other words, if we're gonna get into this, I'd like to do it so that we don't feel like, I want it to look good for everybody down there. You've done such a good job with Nornay Park that if we can actually take from Nornay Park up to High Plains and create a whole kind of beautiful way of just walking right up there with nice signs or things. Obviously, I don't want to spend $500,000 on this, but let's see what we can do. And I'd rather see if we can get different players involved. I don't know if it's something we think we need a committee for, but I would like to get input from people so we can take the next steps and then figure out, as we do this, let's just make sure, like, whose jurisdiction it would really be falling under. I mean, I know the Board of Selectmen, I'm bringing up the concept. Maybe it is in our jurisdiction to try to move this forward, but maybe I'm walking on somebody's toes and I don't realize it, and I don't want to do that. So I just want to put it out there to say, let's get the right people involved and see what we can do to help with some of that neighborhood development.
Where did you want to put the sign?
That's part of the discussion. I don't know. It might be something that's not necessarily right in the front of Nornay Park, but at a corner or across the street if we can work with, you know, when they're redoing the Wildwood Rela on that corner, still maybe on the sidewalk. It could just be almost like a neighborhood directory that mentions, yeah, this is here and over there is where you're gonna find all this stuff, or, you know, something like that. Because the signs are gonna be much more useful along Main Street than up High Plains Road or whatever that is, that school street that brings you up that way. Because you're not gonna get the traffic to see the sign, but on Main Street you will. So that's kind of my thought, but again, I've got a thought, I really don't have a plan.
Given the amount of input we had from people, the response, the number of letters that they took time to write, some pretty lengthy letters to us, there's a lot of interest in it. So I'd say we keep this on the old business for a few meetings continuously and see what comes up with it. If people continue to have their interest and come up with more ideas and suggestions, then that's no need to form a committee if they're forming themselves and letting us know. So I'd say we let it ride on the old business for a few meetings and
I would encourage more of the emails and letters to us with thoughts about how you would like your neighborhood upgraded, rather than just us throwing something at you and you saying whether you like it or not. Tell us what you want. I do think that this is something people would want, but how they would want it is a different story. Maybe I'm wrong. And they can all come at me and just leave us alone, Matt. We figured it out, we're happy, and I'm making something up in my own mind that I don't want to, like I said, I don't mean to push it on you. I just think it's something that,
The letters that you received from the neighborhood?
most of those were about the Trafalgar Square question, not
Oh,
the basketball
'cause
court.
I-
But there
I
are people
just-
that were interested, so I'd like to hear from them.
my point
What would you
being,
like in your neighborhood?
this meeting spawned a lot of letters when
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
discussion
and
came up from
I
the
know-
area.
I know a couple people up there who
Right.
said they would like to, they want to watch their kids, they want to know where they are.
Right.
We're not sending them anywhere.
Mhm.
And they feel they have a very nice little community up there. From what I've heard, they all come out and talk to each other.
They've expressed that in their letters, yes.
Yeah, they have coffee or whatever, sometimes they have a cookout. So it seems like they're pretty happy with their little area. And that's
It
just,
does.
that's just the feedback.
It does,
I
but
have.
I'm saying if we let this go a few weeks, we may have other people say, hey, that sounds like a good idea, and have an idea and suggest something. Or I've always thought this would be a good place for something. I don't know. I don't live down there.
But I would like to make sure that when people are hearing this, that they understand I'm not talking about just the people on Church Street and Trafalgar Square, but over on Nelson and over on some of the other surrounding streets, and even obviously now up on Peach Street and School Street, and even going down Main Street or Southbury Road that's closer to that end. Is there something they would like? Would that be some, you know, in other words, I'm just trying to extend it to people that actually might want to say, this is a place I'd like to go.
Also, you have the baseball field over by the Station 2 firehouse.
Yeah, when you get further down, that's a
No,
whole
it's-
different.
It's not that far, I mean, it is out of that walk.
It's
but-
way away, it's not walking distance.
But it's still a place people drive to, and there's parking there, ample parking there for people to drive and bring kids to. So as I said, maybe if you wanted basketball courts, there's a good place for basketball where kids can drive to. There's often people there for Little League games. Most people that come with one kid per game have another kid with them. I mean,
Go play with the other
I
kids at the
remember,
court, I hear you.
I remember Little League, it's a long time ago for me, but there was, you know, when
The
your
whole
sibling-
family came.
when your siblings played, you went and played in the playground. And,
Yeah.
you know, it would be nice to see a playground of some sort, you know, swings and a slide down there, it'd be great, keep kids busy during games and things.
So that's what we're asking, and I agree with Greg. Let's leave it on the old business agenda for a while. Anything that comes up, we'll talk about, but I would encourage anybody in town to bring your thoughts to us. Let us know what you think. I say this, but you might look at it and say, you're just wasting town money and you don't want me to, that's the town's business. Tell us what you want. I'm not trying to,
Can I just note one thing on this?
yeah.
This discussion's way more enjoyable than marijuana bylaws.
Definitely.
After 2 years of that, I enjoy this discussion much more.
That was stressful.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
This is less stressful.
One more, Mary Jane, and then we're moving on from the topic.
Yes, I'm talking about the 3.5 years of this basketball hoop trouble that I've had. No one in this room lives where I live. And these letters, a flurry of letters like snowflakes coming, are probably from the people down the area that I'm having trouble with. The alcoholics and the addicts, the wives, telling me to read the Bible and all this kind of stuff, and nothing she can do about it. And she washes her face in toilet water, and everybody up here hates you, and you're evil, evil, and all this. This is the talk that the letters are coming from. Miss Gendron's car was up here at number 11 by the hoop, talking to this woman.
Yes, and
I would like to know about the person who owns the hoop. Who owns the hoop? Is it Mr. Higgins? I asked a couple weeks ago. Is it the people that live in number 9 or number 6 or number 11? Who owns this hoop?
The question's been asked, and nobody identifies ownership. So if there was a press to put ownership on it, it's whoever's living in that property at the time would be held liable for anything and everything going on with that hoop, as if they owned it, unless someone else stepped up and said, I own it. So assume the people living in that building own it, because they own all responsibility regarding it. If a kid broke his leg in their driveway playing basketball, they're responsible for the insurance to protect the person if there was a claim. So that's what I'm trying to say, MJ, is you don't need to know the name of the person until there's something we can do about it, and right now legally there's nothing we can do about it.
We have 15 letters from different people, mostly different addresses, some either multiple address or in a multi-family home, but 15 different letters supporting the basketball hoop. And one of the things I'd said to you, Mary Jane, was if you can get your neighborhood to support you in wanting to remove this, to demonstrate it's not just you, but they want it gone, and the neighborhood's spoken, quite the opposite. I haven't received any letters from anyone that says that they would like it gone. And this is a way, as we said, to send us letters confidentially, and these people did, but no one sent them.
They didn't even send them confidentially. They put their name right on it.
Most of these signed it and put their name and address on it, but this was an opportunity, as we said, to turn them in confidentially, and nobody saw a need to support, the thought of removing that hoop.
Take that back. Some of it was anonymous, I'm sorry. It wouldn't have been fair to say otherwise.
They do not want it on their street in front of their house. That is the reason. We have to have some common sense here.
Mary Jane,
They want it there in
Exactly.
my house where they are harassing me and bullying me. And this is my home.
Mary Jane, I don't disagree with some of what you're saying and definitely how it can be perceived. Two people disagree, and we bring it up like this. You've had your voice. They chose to present their voice. They put it in writing. Now we have two disagreements. They both are attacking each other and taking out the strength of either argument. So we can't sit here and say, you're right, and then go to them and say, you're wrong, because it's just a perspective. There's nothing we can nail on this. They have numbers against you when it comes to what they're reporting about the condition of the neighborhood and the situation you've been talking about. Right now, that means, from somebody that doesn't live there, they have more of a voice than we do. And they actually right now have more of a voice than you do. And I'm not saying right or wrong, okay? This has nothing to do with that. It's that what it is you are the only one in the entire South Barre, or the entire town actually, that has put in writing You're concerned with the people in your neighborhood and nobody else, no one in town has come before us and said, I have witnessed that actually happening and Mary Jane's right. And I'm not saying you're wrong. But as a board member who doesn't live in the neighborhood, I can't choose one voice over many. I can't say that you're right and they're wrong. But I'm not going to say they're right and you're wrong either. I'm just stuck in the middle. I got no proof. I got nothing. And I'm not going to ask the town to put up video cameras up and down your street and just sit and watch it and record it for 3 months.
To that end.
Because we can't, it's not cost effective and the town wouldn't even approve it. They wouldn't let us.
We did look into where the hoop is located, and pictures of where the hoop is in the town's road maps, and it is clearly outside the curbing edge, which is,
It's a Google map.
Wait,
It happens every 3 years.
but the curbing edge is defined in the town, the road map is a border of the road, so the curbing is the end of our road, of our right of way, so if it's kept beyond that, it's fine. If they pull it out and use it and put it back, I don't have a problem with that, I've always said that.
I know you don't.
I don't like it to
But
be
you don't
stored
live in the
in a road.
neighborhood,
I don't
so our
want,
opinion doesn't matter.
if anybody wants to play basketball in the driveway, so what?
And this is where I was trying to get Mary Jane. And I really, for tonight, after I say this, I'll let Greg and I'll let Dylan have their say if they got something. I might even let Sam talk, but I'm not sure because this topic is just run into the ground. Mary Jane, I ask you to do this for me. Do whatever you can that's within your control to work with them.
In control, down there. I am not
Answer this.
in control down
Are you still parking on the street when you have room in your driveway?
Like
Are
everybody
you?
else, like everybody else is, yes.
Then you are not doing what's within your control to work with them. You could park in your driveway, but you choose not to. So don't tell me you're doing everything in your control to work with them
They have
if you
no place
don't
to
do
play.
that.
Move it towards there.
You're not listening to me. You're not trying to work towards the middle with
I heard
them,
it
and
from
you're
the
asking us
police.
to do it for you.
I heard it from the police, and I heard it from you, and I heard it from everybody,
And what did you hear from us?
that I do not have the same rights that the other people that have the boat parked.
No,
the truck
no,
parked
you're
and
not
everything.
listening. This has nothing to do with rights. It has nothing to do with
I
law.
park like
It has to
everybody
do
else
with
does.
working with your neighbors.
If
It's a
anybody
whole
else,
different story than the laws of this world.
if anybody
I have
else
a
is
court-
complaining about the basketball hitting the car and they were parking it in the street where they're playing basketball, I'd say, well, why don't you move it somewhere else? And if they have a driveway spot open, I'd say, well, that's silly, move it in the driveway.
Mary Jane, and I'm not saying again
That's
what
just-
your rights
the
are.
other
I'm
cars
just
are
saying,
parking where they need to
if
park
you
properly.
did that, do you think it would be showing a little consideration and therefore you could ask for consideration in return?
Would this be consideration to move it towards the garage so they would be playing in their yard, not in the road? Is that not common sense? Or is it common sense for the top cops to tell me, wouldn't it be better for you to rent out your house and move? That's what the drug addicts say, and the,
Mary Jane, I
Get
am
together.
not asking you
Get
to do
together.
that. I didn't ask you to do that at all. And instead of listening to anything I asked for, you just came at me and said,
I'm sorry I approached.
no, I have no problem with you approaching. I didn't feel threatened. That's not an issue. And I understand this is extremely emotional. What I'm trying to suggest, though, is both parties. I'm asking you, and I have no problem. Once my knee heals, I'm going to go down to them too, and I'm going to ask them to do the same thing. Start finding a balance between both of your lives where even if it's just as simple as you getting into the driveway, they see you're actually trying to understand what they're trying to do. And maybe, wait, please. I'm not looking for a response anymore. I just got to say this and I'm done with it. Maybe they'll show some consideration also and be more polite if they see you're doing the same thing in response. And you'll never know until you try. You will never know until you try. And that's all I'm suggesting. Try. And I will, I promise you, Mary Jane, when my knee is good enough and I can walk, I'm coming down there and I don't mind walking with you to meet them and the three of us can stand there in the street. Why would you not do that?
because I'm told, do not speak to me, do not speak to my children. Call the cops, call the cops, they'll do nothing. From the people up there, not just one, others, call the cops, call the cops, call the cops, they'll do nothing. They know that's nothing's gonna happen up there, they know.
Because legally, you have nothing to stand on at the moment. I'm not asking this about cops and law. The reason they say call the cops is they think that's what you're gonna do. And they know that it's not gonna help. I'm suggesting let's stop fighting each other and find out how we can work together.
They're
And it won't
dribbling-
work if you keep looking in the
They're
history.
dribbling the basketball off of my car wheels. And he's not in a blackout that he's doing it. Because when I'm sitting in my yard, I hear him repeating the story. Yeah, and I dribbled the basketball off of her wheels.
I am
Laughing
not
and
defending
joking
any of
about
that
it.
activity if that's what's going on. I'm not. I'm just saying in a world that we live in today, we've got to start working on bridging gaps, not building walls. And
there's
you're
no
not
place-
helping
there's
on
no
your
place
side
in
of the
Denone
fence.
Park for a basketball hoop. That is
There's
God's
no
land.
desire for the town to
That
put a
is
basketball court there,
God's
just
land.
yours.
When we're all dead and gone, that grass and that asphalt and all that stuff is gonna still remain. It belongs to God.
Agreed.
It was given for the people.
So is the street you live on and the house you live in. It's a gift from God. And when you die, it will go away. The only thing you have control in this life, if you believe in God, I got to be careful how I represent myself because I'm in a government position, is how you treat other people. How are you treating them, Mary Jane?
The same way they treat me.
Is that what God says? Treat people the way they treat you? Or
Yes,
treat people the way
yes,
you want them to
absolutely,
treat
that's
you?
what God says.
No, it isn't.
Treat your neighbor.
As yourself.
That's right.
So is this what you do to yourself?
They're doing it to me. I don't.
I
like
didn't
it.
ask that.
They're
Because
doing it
you
to me.
are manipulating the Bible's words if you're going to try to say, because they did it to me, I get to do it to them. That has nothing to do with anything in that religion.
I don't think it says treat others how they treat you. It says treat others how you would have
And
others treat
it's
you.
in several religions for those that call it the golden rule and all these other things. But
Do unto
almost
others
every
as you would
religion
others do
has
unto
this
you.
that is considered. Well, every religion. I don't know. Everyone I've studied, this is one of the tenets of their religion.
This is politics.
No, this
This
is
not
people.
God. This is politics.
This is
how
people.
the answers are done.
Politics
and how
is
the
manipulating people. This is working with people. I'm asking you to consider what I suggested, and I will do what I can to help with you. But that's me, Matt Urban, not the Board of Selectmen and not the government body. Because the government body has no place in this. Every time the government gets involved with something like this, we screw it up worse. We make rules that don't fit anymore, and now you got neighbors fighting each other, and they look at a law and say, that law said you can't live. And we get stuck with it because we wrote some stupid law that we didn't see the loophole, and now we're screwed with it. So what I'm trying to say, Mary Jane, is when you hit a point where the law's not there, when you hit a point where your neighborhood does not seem to want to agree with you, when you requested the park, the basketball court in Nornay Park, and no one in town says, I would use that if you put it in there. Nobody wants to spend the money on it. Nobody in town wants it on that park other than you. You may need to realize you've got to find another approach to resolve the problem you have. And I'm really trying to work with you on it. I told
There
you
are answers to this.
there are answers.
Yes, there are answers to this.
To what question? All right. I will do everything in my power to follow up with you if you're interested after tonight. Because I do care.
Mary Ann Jenner about it. I think she's a Catholic.
Anybody else have anything to say? Otherwise, I would like to move on. Sam?
I do have a question. You mentioned earlier about some legal responsibility as to whoever owns this thing.
Yeah.
Might it not be just a good idea to find out who owns it and have a certain expectation
It
from
doesn't
them?
matter who owns it.
No,
It
no.
matters,
No, but
it matters.
wait.
No, not legally.
Barry,
Wait, let me
It
finish.
just matters where it's at.
Let me finish.
according to
If one person owns
the
it
deed.
and there's a
The deed was the town
Problem.
Barry.
Yeah.
someone gets hurt, if something happens, this person who owns it, from what you just said, has liability.
No.
So
The person that either owns or rents the property is located on has the responsibility,
So who
not
has
the
the
person that just owns the hoop.
who has the liability if something happens?
If this.
Whoever's living on that property, and it depends on the lease agreement as to who owns the responsibility of the property.
So maybe you guys need to find out who this is and let them know that they have a liability.
No, we don't.
Because if they have a liability and someone gets hurt, at least you know to go, where to go to.
We're not getting
instead of
involved in
the
that.
town.
Sam, you're missing the point.
Maybe I am.
That's what you
Explain.
do when something happens,
Okay,
but not before it. That is their responsibility to know the liability they put them in their neighborhood in. And if they fail to protect the people in the town, just like if somebody walked across my yard right now, technically, if they tripped and fell into the hay rake sitting into my grass, I'm sure somebody in Massachusetts has a lawyer that would say it's my fault for them falling into a hay rake. And I would have to fight it legally.
yeah, you would, okay.
The same thing would occur to whoever, whatever property that basketball hoop is, it's either the owner of the property or it's the leasee or the renter that would fall responsible for putting that basketball hoop there and causing anybody to get hurt.
As
But
long as
it's
they know.
private property, it's not our
They
business.
don't have to know.
They don't have to.
The ignorance of law is not a defense in this country.
That's the power that's going on down there. No one is gonna find out who owns that hoop. That's the power, and that's where it stays, because I'm there and because it's a way to harass and bully with the thugs.
Mary Jane, you're
That's
still
what-
missing the point.
Oh, God.
Can we move on? And just stop, no more words, next agenda, just go.
I think
We've said it
as
a few
much can be
times.
said as been said.
Thank you.
I'd like to end this discussion and transfer this whole topic just to the High Plains Park thing as a future item, like you said, but not South Barry Common Committee / Nornay Park discussion. Separately, when it comes to Mary Jane's issue on Trafalgar Square, that's something I don't mind looking into on my own. If it's something I think is a Board of Selectmen thing, I'll bring it back to you. But I won't be acting as a member of the board if there's anything I can do to help her. I don't want to misrepresent that, so I'm not gonna do anything with her that would be
You can't-
representative of my position.
Can't
That's all.
promise anything in the town's behalf, but certainly we all can go look at things on behalf of the board and bring.
Yeah, I just
reports
wanted
back.
you to know.
We all understand that.
I may continue that, but not as
Hmm?
government business. I don't want it to be misunderstood that if I'm down there talking to someone, I'm doing it because the Board of Selectmen should be involved. It has nothing to do with that. If I'm doing it on my personal reasons. I'm doing it to see if I can help someone out, and that's it. And I didn't want to misrepresent.
There's nothing wrong with saying
To
you're
the
doing it
board
as a,
and the
as
town.
a, as a selectman, but you're not doing it with the authority of the board. There's a difference.
Right, and I'm not
Doing-
even doing it as a selectman. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. I'm not doing this. I'm only made aware of it because I was a selectman, but that doesn't mean I'm acting on it because of that. That's the point I'm trying to make. You guys can
That's your prerogative.
choose your, well, right, that's all I just wanted to make sure it was clear. I don't want the rest of the town thinking that just because I'm a selectman, I'm gonna jump into everything and everybody's neighborhood arguments, because I can't do that. Next item on the list would be, oh wait. Who's here for what reason? So I can see if we should just move some of the agenda items up so we don't drag you.
Permits.
We got more for you?
I don't know, they had something on,
Oh, the special town meeting, the special event permit bylaw
Event.
discussion?
or yeah,
Okay. We'll get to that shortly, in a sec then. You're here specifically for an appointment? All right. which one is this?
I'm here for
Conservation.
pub-
Number 9?
I'm here for public comment, by the way.
I'll jump right to that potentially in a moment. I just gotta look at this. This is an easier one to get to. Elisha? Elisha. Thank you. Conservation Commission requests that Elisha Musgraves of 920 Williamsville Road be appointed to the commission. Ms. Musgraves is an environmental engineer for wetland delineation. She has familiarized herself with our commission by attending several meetings and has expressed an interest in becoming a member. Ms. Musgraves' knowledge will be an asset to this board. How many people do we currently have on it?
Or more importantly, how many positions are available?
You got 1, or you got 2, you currently have 5?
On the Conservation Commission?
7-member board, right?
No, actually, she would become our associate.
Oh, the
That
associate,
one's
oh,
vacant,
okay,
yeah.
sorry.
And
Associate.
then-
Oh, I thought that was a 3-member board.
No,
Okay, it just was surviving with 3 members for a little while.
for a while, yeah.
Okay.
Now, then we ended up getting 2 more, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so associate.
So are these normally elected positions we're appointing in the
They're-
interim to elections? or
They're
is
always
this-
appointed positions.
They're always appointed,
Yeah.
okay. So there's no term, or is there a general term? We do
The associate member's a 1-year term.
Of course,
When
we're
it's-
hoping if anyone does
Yeah.
leave, that she'd become a full member.
I think it would be very similar with planning board. We generally take that associate and that would be the, I would support that too.
Of course.
Um,
First steps first, make a motion that we appoint Alicia Musgraves, associate position on the Conservation Commission.
I second that.
Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Congratulations, Ms. Musgrave. Thank you very much for volunteering and helping the town out with this.
Thank you so much. I'm excited. I really love what I do for work, and I'm excited. Okay, sorry.
No, this is awesome.
Happy to see
Thank
it.
you very much. Alrighty, done.
All right.
Go down and get sworn in.
That's right, she should be in down there, right?
Yeah, Monday night, right? Okay. Thank you, thank you.
So there for a bit.
I'll go with
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll speak later. Hey,
So-
congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll speak on the other thing.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Let's jump to number 4. We do have people here specific to that. Have to start there and then we'll get back to some other things. After this, we'll go to public comment, but I do want to just take advantage of
That's fine.
or not take advantage of the fact you showed up to talk about it and I want to see what we can do here. I'm open with Andrew or Greg, either one of you, if you'd like to just start any conversation on this, we can go from there.
Pretty much this is just an outline of what we would do to try to formalize what our current processes are and just basically set, what would actually be defined as a public event and how the permitting process would go. And pretty much put it on the books as a true bylaw rather than just a policy of the board.
Do you believe the current draft summarizes our current process, or?
Generally, it does. Yeah, it pretty much just goes over what our current process is. Trying to think of anything that is any different than what we currently do.
And the fee is $100, is that current with us? or is that
That's the current,
$125?
yeah, that's the current fee structure. I mean, we can,
Um,
what we might do is, we could leave that off or just add it to the fee leave it to the actual fee schedule.
I'd like to read it through in more detail, and I'd like the town to get a chance to read this
Yeah.
through in more detail. I'd like to see it posted to our website and copies offered if people want to come get a hard copy.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you guys wanna make any changes before we did
Hmm.
make it officially public for public comment. I mean, it is a public record anyway, so.
I
anybody who
would
wants it
think
now
if we're gonna make
can use it.
recommendations, we'll do it anyways, public comment or not, and the public may have the same comment, so I see no harm in putting it out. Just looking through the sections on it, no problem putting it out now, and their comment could come in the same time as ours, and I'd like to be able to get through this for a special town meeting and see if we can't. Well, no reason they shouldn't wait till the annual town meeting, but give us some time to work on it, get ready for annual town meeting. I thought it's better time to read it through thoroughly and to come up with anything we want to mark up, and people could do the same thing. You may find they have similar thoughts or thoughts that might hinder our markup thoughts that we have, so get it all done at once. And then when we think we have a final draft, we'll put it out again.
Do you have an extra copy I could grab, or?
If, you can take this copy, Phil.
We have this digitally, don't we?
You do.
I got a digital.
Both that and, but yeah, go ahead and.
We've got a digital copy, so I can go through it.
That's the policy.
Oh,
That's,
did I get the wrong one? I get the
Yeah.
wrong part of it? Let me see.
I think that's financial policy.
Well, some of it was.
There you go, Phil, this is,
I got the first page of that, sorry. There it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
It was in there. This sticky note was on top of
Yeah.
the other part, too. Just in the wrong. That's what I was kind of looking at it way at the beginning. Wait a minute, that's not it. That's not going through, and I had it all. But the rest of this must be,
feel free to
there.
mark up, make comments, submit anything you want. Phil, any suggestions? I agree with Greg, this isn't something we're necessarily wanting to rush, but we wanna just get it out there, kinda grind through all the comments, work through what's in the best interests of the town. Which includes obviously the private owners and every, it's not just town government, it's the town, I mean, that we need to pay attention to, so.
And it would still go before the planning board. I still can't fathom why a special events would go through the planning board, but,
That's something we'll have to review to see if it would or wouldn't.
so
The-
as it stands now, it's still gonna go through the planning board.
Not what, so I believe that was one of the changes that we made, because in reality, the planning board it's not a,
It's not a one-time event board,
right, and
it's a land
it's
use.
not something that falls under the authority of chapter 41A to do one-time events. So it would be something that we're looking to more put under the control of the boards or the departments that really have a stake in the
Enforcement
in
boards.
the enforcement.
Right. And so if there is something that's a chance now to look at, the stuff you don't like, bring it back and tell us. I would think the appropriate time to put any bylaws on it, my feeling is the annual town meeting, not special, so I'd rather wait this till June anyways, that gives us plenty of time. And I think it's long overdue to put something back in the books that everyone can agree to. Last time it was thrown at us at annual town meeting 3 years ago, without any notice ahead of time. It was very sloppy and very ambiguous, and that's why it was tabled by somebody. And it's long due to get back on there.
So,
Good.
exactly. Bring up anything you want. I know one of the things I would bring up is, and again, I'm not knocking Conservation Commission's role with certain things where like maybe you had some obstacles that might have been getting near wetlands. But generally, I want to double check how that might fit under just standard temporary building code type, or how does that come into play on that? Cause it's, is it really a special event thing, or is it something that existing regulations actually would already address? Where, okay, you're doing an obstacle course, I see all these structures, I've got my building department rules or whatever about your structures, but they're also the ones that would say, you have a path, I see that path may go near wetlands, and then the building department would say, go to the Conservation Commission, get sign off, and then come back to us to get your temporary structure permit. So in other words, there may already be something in place for Conservation Commission to have a role, and it shouldn't necessarily be part of a special event. Because again, if there's no temporary structure,
With the event,
it may not be something that really applies to,
well, the special event doesn't necessarily have to dictate a control over it, but it should reference that there needs to be a visit made to that department, that's all. It's
But
more
that's
of a-
my point is, why would Conservation Commission have to be involved at all if there's already something that would bring them involved when it matters?
So section 15, it does say that the issuance of the special permit doesn't relieve any person from the obligation to obtain other permits or licenses required pursuant to this chapter or any other public entity with jurisdiction over the event, including the police department, fire department, conservation commission, and board of health. So it still gives them that latitude to step in if they do have jurisdiction.
Which is why I'm
Right.
saying we don't necessarily need to draft their role into this bylaw.
Right.
Because there's already regulations where if they have a voice by regulation, they step in. And if anybody fails to properly let them know they're doing something,
This
they're
is-
breaking the law.
This is why I like what we're trying to do now, that it comes to the office here, and we bounce it off the departments, so they have the chance to voice it, yes, we have an opinion with something, or no, we don't. Rather than, yeah, I like the fact that we do the reaching out, rather than someone assumes they don't have to do anything, then they find out when they're all ready to go, then somebody walks in and says, oh, wait a minute, you didn't see us, we didn't know this was going on, and get stopped. You know, I'd rather see things not get stopped, I'd rather see them flow smoothly, so I like the inclusion of bouncing it off the department heads, you know, if applicable. And that's the discretion of the office and the administrator when this comes to him.
So that's just something, again, we'll add to our discussions. I see your point,
I
though.
mean, it's valid because.
We're trying to actually help an applicant not get hit in the last second
Right,
with
Phil wouldn't wanna have everything
someone
all set
stepping
up.
in saying, wait, we have a voice and you should have known, and I
Right,
guess.
someone says, oh, well, you know, that's the code, you should have known it was a code. We need to just make sure those departments have been notified, so they have the chance to red flag something. If they think they need some input, then they get in contact. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sign off that they've already approved and done it before the event for us to approve the event, because they can shut the event down if they have that authority. But we need to make sure that those departments have seen it prior to us approving it. That's all.
Gotcha.
So
And
I'm tired of
I don't
waiting.
disagree with good communication.
I'm tired of waiting for sign-offs. I don't like that.
It takes months to do an event, you know.
But yeah,
it's everything.
I don't like to wait for sign-offs. I get frustrated when they've known for a month and they just haven't bothered to meet on it. As long as we know the department's been notified, if they have some authority that they wish to exert over it, they need to do it. I just want to make sure that we've confirmed that they've been notified with a certain amount of time. And most times, probably 2 or 3 weeks, we'll make sure we get a meeting for most of the groups that would have any issue. But
Well,
most of these
I
groups
still
are
agree
full-time.
with the 60-day application period. Because if you're doing an event that requires a special permit, it should be large enough where you're planning more than 60 days before the event. And you can bring it to our attention with an application saying, hey, which means we all have plenty of time to get a chance to look at it. If somebody fails to submit it in the 60 days and we fail to respond in timely, that's on them.
Well, I
I'm
think-
sorry,
How
but
many days is it in this?
60 days.
I think we should assure our response within 60 days, but someone's free to apply within 2 weeks if they think they can get it done. That's up to them.
oh yeah, and like
I mean,
like
I'm just
when they
saying,
do, I'm just
we
saying,
have
but
to-
they can't.
the
They
60
should not
days.
assume we would respond in 2 weeks. Is all I mean.
Right. That would do a lot of legwork if they wanted to see everybody. I wouldn't discourage anyone from applying for a permit because they're not 60 days out. I want to make that
Right.
clear and make sure that that's clear in the books that, you know,
Sorry.
as someone applies in this,
30 days.
So you right.
so if someone applies in
Existing
30
right
days,
now, our
we're
paperwork
going to get
says
to it.
60.
30 days is more
In this.
reasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
And you say if someone comes in 30 days or further out, then we will make sure this application process is finished on time. But if someone comes in 2 weeks out, it doesn't mean it won't get done, it just means that we can't guarantee it.
Right.
But
And
we're not gonna
I would
say-
suggest
we're
anybody
not
in
gonna
July
say
and
no.
August don't assume there's going to be someone around within a 2-week
Right.
period.
And we're not gonna just say, no, we didn't get it in time, you can't be heard. I don't want to, I just want to make sure that's not done.
I see your
I
point.
don't like when there's that much bureaucracy. It's still a small town, we still all live in town. We're all reachable, if need be, so.
Generally, I agree.
Well, I know, but.
And I
you
see
know,
your point. No need to say it's going to take 2 months if
Individual polls.
reasonably we should be able to do it within.
Right, without having a big meeting on it, you know, we could poll individually and then we could get the process started until we have a meeting. If we had to, we could make a meeting and meet on it. You know,
Okay.
that's all. But 30 days is nice, it's shorter, that's good.
Any other discussion on this at this time, or just take some time, review it, start bringing in some comments, and we'll continue to build on it?
Ink it up.
So, thank you for taking your time. I know this is something you've had to walk through multiple times.
It looks like, sounds like an improvement, so,
I think we're trying to find a middle ground that
Yeah.
works for both.
yeah. Good.
We got a lot of red tape in the town over the years that we gotta try to cut through, and, I think the board has had habits in the past of overreaching, I think, on things, and I'd like to see us less involved in committees that have their own jobs, do their own jobs, and so far too often, I know I do, and you guys probably do, get phone calls from people about things that really don't relate to us and are not under our authority. And I think maybe that's the way things were in the past, and it really shouldn't be. We should try to stick to the things that are, within our control, and people should execute the proper channels and avenues, and we are a fallback if there's nothing done. Maybe get involved and start a dialogue with the board, but people should start with the appropriate boards and committees, and particularly all the issues of roads we get all the time. So many complaints come straight to us, and they really shouldn't be here. They should go down to the other committee first, and that commission, and same thing with this. It should all.
I think a lot of people get confused because highway is technically Board of Selectmen, sewer Commission, Water Commission, so roads are Board of Selectmen / DPW Commission, and it's always who do I go to? And so I can understand why someone in the general public would be like, who do I go to on that? But I see your.
But that's just
That's
an
a different
example, it's an
topic.
example,
I'm
it's an
sorry.
example that's easier to call out, but I mean, there's other issues too. It's just, we're not the do-all, end-all. I wouldn't want anyone to feel like we think we are. We're here to do the town's business and the town's finances, and hopefully try to make this town a little nicer for everybody with different avenues, parks, construction, businesses, and make things work better.
You got anything to add to that, Dylan?
Nope, we went over a lot.
All right.
Nothing new to add.
And we'll step back and go to public comment. Sam?
Some time ago, you folks made a motion to ask the police chief to keep an accounting of all the time that he spent addressing whatever was needed to be addressed at Seven Hills or Stetson School or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
And in passing, I happened to ask the chief what's going on, and he says he's keeping an accounting. And I said, well, why don't you go to the selectmen? He said, well, I'd like them to ask me.
We
So
haven't
I'm
asked.
just kind of bringing it back on the table, and maybe you could request him to come forward sometime at a selectmen's meeting and share his responses for your request. I think that might be enlightening.
Have you noticed, have you been hearing things like there's still issues or upset abutters? I
Oh, I
mean,
haven't.
is this coming back up from you because you're still hearing things, or you just didn't know where it went?
I'm hearing things,
Okay.
and I'm hearing some discontent, and I remember you guys took the initiative to make a motion, and I think it's about time that you asked the chief to come in and tell you and tell the people in television land what's been going on and what hasn't been going on. I think that's sort of.
An update.
I think that's a logical growth direction.
Sure.
And so, because for me, I come to the meeting a lot, and it seems to have been forgotten for whatever reason in the public conversation. And I thought it was a probably good direction to follow up on. That's all.
I'd like to make a comment on it, if I may. Shortly after that, Senator Goby and Representative Berthium went and talked to people at Seven Hills with, I believe, Charlie at the time. You went that time? And ultimately, out of that, Seven Hills decided to eliminate a program that had the particular group of kids that tend to elope from there. Fell mostly within a certain program they were running, which they decided that program may be better suited at a different facility. and they since moved those students out of there. I did stop in at the open house at the police department, albeit briefly, and Seven Hills actually had a table set up there to interact with the public and try to do something. I had suggested to him that maybe they want to look into events in the common, look into trunk or treat, and try to get some, good neighbor feelings going by getting a little more involved with the community. And this was obviously an attempt they already had to do that at this. So that they did react and take that program out of there. I have not seen or heard of any helicopters coming flying around town looking for elopements anymore. So at least the difficulty in the students being located that have made serious attempts to leave seems to have died down. And there was an interview that Mr. Urban was interviewed, I believe in Fox 25, as well as some citizens in town and from other towns where Seven Hills is. And they interviewed the chief, and he actually got the cite from those records that he was thankfully already tabulating. And it did demonstrate the call volume going on. This is prior to that fix. And it would be interesting to see what sort of call volume we have now. I would anticipate that it's much lower and much more aligned with the high school call logs, for other students and calls, I would think. I'm sure the ambulance still goes. There's going to be times, just from the nature of the school, that's their route to take kids someplace is use the ambulance service. So I'd be surprised if that's lessened, and I don't think we asked Chief Rogowski to log that. But I'd agree, maybe we invite the chief in for another meeting. I don't know if we make the next one, or perhaps push it into October. He'll be in trunk or treat anyways. I assume getting ready for that, we can maybe try to coincide that so we're not dragging him after hours too many nights. That when he comes in to start prepping for the trunk or treat, which I assume you guys will be doing again, and we get an update then.
Are you talking about the police chief and the fire department?
We didn't ask the fire department to log anything, but
He's been logging it, though.
he knows what his calls are, and we could ask him, but I don't anticipate those calls to change, because the fire department wasn't going so much for elopements as they go regular for whatever type of interactions they have with these mostly minor children, so we don't know what the interactions are. But I don't expect those calls to drop off, because the school is still there, the kids are still there, they're still gonna have the same incidents. We were just really concerned with how those incidents were flowing into the town and the community. And it seems to me that for the most part, they've died down quite a bit. I would doubt they'll ever stop completely, but I think they've really curtailed.
No, I think you're right, it wouldn't be a bad idea for the information
Right.
anyway, and to see actually how much in dollars and cents it costs us that we as a town were not paying previously, because that organization was not as large. So it might be, I've always learned that information is power, so since I didn't hear much about it, I just thought I'd bring it up again, and I'm glad that you concur, that's all.
Yeah, we really hadn't considered a timeline to take that data and look at it, but I think it would be a good opportunity to do it in October. It'd be certainly several months since they've taken that program out of the school, and we'll probably see a stark change in the visits after that program has ended. And I would think at that time it'd be a good chance to go back and talk with Seven Hills again and have something nice to say for a change.
The first meeting I attended with Ann Goby and Donnie Berthium, that kind of brought this to the head, that I believe Seven Hills responded by making changes in their program. This occurred back, I believe, around March. We had that meeting, and then we had a follow-up meeting in June. And the follow-up meeting is when they indicated that they had dropped that one program.
Dropped or dropping at that point.
They also were increasing their community outreach, trying to talk to the neighbors, try to get a better understanding, and try to rebuild their relationship with the community, which was as important as what was going on with people leaving, because if there's an elopement and it's not really a serious student that was eloping, the communication with the neighbors had kind of broken down enough where the neighbors were no longer calling the school, they were calling the police. Where if a neighbor saw someone eloping, historically, now going back, a lot of the neighbors actually had the number for Stetson and would pick up and talk to him and say, hey, I think one of your students is going down the street. And that always helps. Again, back to the neighborhoods working together rather than always looking for some third-party government thing to fill in the gap, because you just don't want to pick up the phone and say, hey, I think one of your students is walking down the street. I believe they are making that progress, but I also know when I spoke to the chief in those meetings, or right after those meetings, one of the things he said, and we all agreed with, even Seven Hills and Stetson and DCF, they were at the meeting as well, is that you can see good progress for 3 months, 4 months, but you're really not gonna know until you really give it a good year. Really, let's see what happens. What's the difference in summer versus winter? What's the difference between this situation, that? So what we're really saying is, really starting from June this year, we almost wanna wait until June next year to see the numbers. Cause you can't really get a good picture of a short-term window of 3 months of numbers or 6 months. You gotta see if there's a trend, you know, and so my understanding is, at least, let me take that back. My observation, just like Greg was saying, I don't hear the helicopters near as much. I'm not getting the reverse 911 swift notifications about elopements like we were even in June. You know, since June almost, I'm getting almost nothing, which is positive, obviously. But that doesn't mean that there isn't still things going on, and they're just trying to handle it less publicly, and I'm not saying that's wrong. If they're still working with the police and the police are saying, you know, we can work together, we just don't have to exacerbate the issue. Let's work on the issue. Kind of like Greg was mentioning about observations, and what I'm thinking now is, the reason I haven't been chasing the chief down on how's this going is, I don't have anybody asking me, how's it going? Which means it must be moving in the right direction, otherwise the neighbors would still be calling on me and knocking my door saying, what's going on at Stetson, what are you gonna do about it?
We were contacted.
So I've kind of let it
Yes.
work itself out, let the chief work with them, things like that, but I don't mind calling the chief and trying to get an update, but I'm not sure, hey, call the chief in and have him give a report to the town about what's going on is gonna cause anything positive to come out of that meeting. Because usually public statements like that just get people defensive and they stop working together and they build their little legal defense publicly, and it comes off and is perceived incorrectly because they're more worried about the legal side than they are about just getting it done right. But then they go home and they wanna do it right, but they just can't do it publicly.
What if we ask the chief to, for October, give us, the board, something we can look at for an update?
And I'm fine with that, and I have no
That-
problem with you guys asking.
Because that way, if it is as we anticipate, and it shows a good drop off, we can say, just so people understand it. Since they've ended this program, these elopements have dropped off, and I'd like to put something positive out there if we have that,
Yeah.
so you're right, I shouldn't assume it's positive, and if the chief comes in, oh, no, we have just as many calls, and I'd rather not put that out there if that's the case and upset people. And like you said, give it a year, but,
And that's the other thing, we
Ask
might
them to
have
get a-
2 months of a lot of calls that
and we don't know if the
Aren't
holidays spike it, or. we don't know.
severe, they were just, it was a normal call. Kid tripped, hit his head on the desk, boom, all 3 people get called in because of random 911 call or whatever, how that works.
Biggest issue there was, the biggest issue was the elopements. I mean, the police were there quite a bit too, but it'd be curious to see, and we can ask the chief for a report for October. So he has time to do it at his leisure, give us an idea of where it sits. However, he sees fit to break that down. I know we discussed some categories, how to break it down when he was here, I think. So I'd love to have an update, and we can decide if we want to share that, which I'm hoping we will. And I'm anxious to see where it goes in a year, but I certainly don't get calls like I used to. I don't get Facebook messages like I used to. Yeah, there was a lot of public outcry about this prior to this program ending, so. It would seem positive just because we're not hearing stuff, and we hear stuff. People make sure we hear stuff.
And I also understand why the chief didn't necessarily give you a full report, because of his position, he can't.
Oh,
You're a
no.
private individual, he
No,
doesn't work for you
No,
directly.
no,
There's
we were
a
just-
balance.
We were just having a general conversation about something else. And-
I guess what I meant to say is I don't think the chief was hiding behind the board of selectmen
Oh,
to
no,
not
no,
answer
no,
your question,
no.
he's just trying to make sure he does his
No,
job
he wa-
professionally, that's all.
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
We did talk about, in fact, the fact that's kind of interesting is that they were talking about setting aside some money for drones. I thought that was kind of funny. So, but anyways, I just thought it
They're
might
actually
be.
pretty helpful.
Since it's costing us money, since we don't have a lot of money, it might be a good idea to find out what it's costing us, that's all.
I got you.
I think that's good business sense.
I see your point.
Good, right? I mean, unless we have tons of money someplace that we don't know about, we don't have to use good sense, right?
Just been sticking it under that cabinet right there. Every 2 weeks, we just stuff a little bit under there, hoping.
Planted, it might grow.
All right, thank you. Mary Jane?
Was I on the agenda tonight? I did get a copy of it, I didn't know when.
The discussion with the Southbury Common Committee regarding the basketball hoop or something else?
Well, I thought on the 9th and the 23rd was supposed to be an agenda about the basketball.
It was, and that's what we talked about almost to start the meeting. When Mary Ann was here and you were here and we had that long discussion, that all was that agenda item. And yes, you're on old business, and it was the very first item. It says discussion with Southbury Common Committee regarding basketball hoop. And that was a generic agenda item, but it allowed us to continue the conversation in a broader scope like we did.
On Trafalgar Square? Or the non-A?
Both, extensively.
We used that agenda item and we opened the conversation to include both the Trafalgar Square concerns you have and your request for the basketball hoop, with your hope and effort that it would help resolve some of your issues at Trafalgar Square. And because of that, the two items were kind of intertwined, and thus the discussion earlier in the meeting was specific to that agenda item.
I had pictures for my part, and I had a suggestion, and,
She brought them forward.
Did you,
Other than the ones you brought forward during the meeting?
what I would like to do?
when I interrupted, or when I was gonna show you the pictures, and a suggestion as to how this could be resolved.
What I would like to do is take what you gave us, we'll read it, and we can revisit it in 2 weeks at the next meeting. We'll leave it on as old business, but we'll identify that as separate. It was presented to us. I also want to make sure that, did you get a copy of this?
Just 3 copies were provided to you guys.
Let's make sure a copy goes in for the record, that it was presented to us. So this is what we received from Mary Jane, so it's, I'll give you my copy, we can make copies of it or whatever, and then get it back to me.
Okay.
And at a minimum, in 2 weeks at the next meeting, we will speak specifically to what you presented, your thoughts, all 3 of us. And that's what we'll do. Focus specifically on what you suggested. We'll answer whatever questions come up, and we'll see where it goes from there, but I'm just asking the other members,
I would
take
say,
your time to read it,
I would say,
and we'll have a
other
quick
than,
discussion in 2
other than
weeks.
things we already discussed, I think you'll find we covered most of that already. I already looked through it. I
And we
believe-
may have.
I believe we did, so I don't
But
want to
I
spend.
haven't.
We covered it tonight, I'm saying. We can look through that. I'd say we remove the items that we already covered tonight and put anything we skipped on the meeting for next time, but I don't want to revisit all of these things that we just did tonight. A large
I'm
portion
not
of
just,
those,
I'm
a
not
large
just.
portion we did tonight. We'll see when you go
When the
through.
discussion comes up, we'll focus on new stuff.
Thank
I
you.
haven't had a chance to review
Right.
it, so I didn't want to assume
I would like to
that
focus on.
I caught everything in the package you
New
gave us.
portions,
that's
but
all.
I don't want to rehash the things we just did tonight.
I'm with you, completely. But we will revisit anything we think we haven't already talked about.
I don't have the information that you have, and I guess it's public.
Ask Andrew, he'll give you copies of every
Copies
letter.
of what, these letters that I don't know about, or these 15 comments I don't know about? And how do we all feel as though kicking the can down the road and the anthill about the basketball? How did we think that came out? You know that the answers were gonna be from the side that's against me, because that's what they want. How did that suggestion how do you think that suggestion went?
Exactly how I thought it was gonna work. But I still had to make the request.
Why was that? All the
Because I cannot speak for the town unless the town gives me something to speak for them about. I need their input. I had to ask.
We have these in email, and I bring those to me anyway, so she can have that whole pile if she wants a copy.
Just because it was the right thing to
Nothing
do.
confidential.
It doesn't matter who brought it up.
Isn't Mary Jane allowed to read copies of those letters?
So you
She
take them
can
all
get-
right here.
They're all public.
So you take them right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we were just agreeing with that. She can get a copy of everything that was presented at this meeting.
Yep. It's your copy if you want.
The only thing she can't get copies of, if we took the time, is if somebody made a mistake and put like their social security number on it, we'd redact it.
Now you're making it look.
I just want to make sure.
But that's
Well, there's
it.
not something.
I didn't notice
But
anybody.
addresses,
And
phone
actually-
numbers, email addresses, none of that is protected. But somebody made
Just
the
wanna make
mistake and
sure,
actually
yeah.
submit a driver's license or social.
I didn't see.
We can't just give that away. We gotta redact that. But there's very few things I'm expecting in any of those
I
letters that would be.
didn't see any, but doesn't mean
Just for
I wasn't
posterity
specifically
information,
looking
but-
for it, but doesn't.
We
hurt
should
to
be
double check.
careful we don't accidentally just give it out, but it doesn't mean you wouldn't get the sheet. It just means we'd have to black out
That goes along with that.
Yep.
certain references to like
Not that I really
checking
looked at
account
it.
numbers if somebody mentioned something.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody did, but,
There you go.
all right. So we will follow up with that in 2 weeks. It will focus on anything new that you bring to the table that hasn't already been discussed. You have is that for her?
That's everything.
That's,
Go ahead.
that's the packet.
Mary
I
Jane?
don't dare approach without asking.
I am asking you to come up, you can have that copy. That is a copy of all the letters and survey information we received on the topic. Thank you. Okay. What do we want to do? Do we want to get into financial policies and procedures now? Or do you want to just, is that something we need to act on
No.
real quickly at all, or is that something we can still kind of grow into?
You
and-
can grow into it as fast as you want. Just wanted
If
to
you
throw
guys are
everything on the
okay with
agenda
it,
that
I
was
would table
discussed.
it
on
again.
this
I
one.
know I had plenty of time, but I have not read it yet.
No,
like I wanted.
I've been very busy. the
I
last couple weeks.
apologize.
I'm just
but
not gonna
being
pop-
honest, I haven't,
Yeah. I'm just not printing another copy for the next one, so remember to bring yours for the next meeting.
will do.
All right.
Thank you. Fire station building committee charge?
So the charge I tried to keep pretty straightforward. The charge currently would be just, is focused mainly right now just on the development of the feasibility study. I don't want to go too far into, creating construction documents, stuff like that. I figured that that could be an amendment to the charge if we get to the point after the feasibility study phase to grow the committee. But just for draft's sake, I put down just some recommendations for membership, and I just noticed I put 2 members of the fire department. I meant to write 3 to make 7. But however you guys want to juggle that balance of
Well,
department
you
members.
said the fire chief and 2 members.
Oh, that's,
That would be
yeah,
3.
there you go.
Yeah, you've got your 7.
I was like, wait a second, I needed I
You
needed
got it,
7.
you got-
Why 2 plus
you got it
4 is
right.
not 1?
You math good, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know. But any combination, if you want to make more members or less members of the fire department, more residents, however you guys see fit. Or any other changes.
You suggesting this would also be the designer selection board?
Be the designer selection board for the feasibility study, so that way they present schematic designs. And develop the RFP with the option that in the event that we do decide to move forward with construction, they could amend the contract to also have them be the architect. So we wouldn't have to rebid as for architectural.
Oh, I got you. The DSB, that could give us the ability to go from feasibility to contract administration.
Right.
Construction administration.
Yep.
Okay. So, let's see, so the 2021 annual town election, okay, I got you, so that's leading into the FY 2022 year.
Yes, leading into the 2022 year. So basically, we're looking for
A year and a half from now.
About a year from when the committee kind of gets established, that they should have a completed feasibility study and recommendation to present. So that way, about this time next year, you guys will have a firm understanding of what the costs potentially could be. So that way, it would give us enough time to put information out to the residents as far as what the tax impacts would be and any other information out there. So that way, you could make a case for a debt exclusion vote at the regular election.
So the question I have then, see if I'm getting this right, is do we have to approve a budget line item to pay for the feasibility study prior to the DSB process? Or after receiving our proposal and saying, this is the number we got, and now can we go fund it?
I would say to appropriate funding, so anywhere between, I'd say 25 to 40, wherever you guys think would feel comfortable. And do the DSB with that as the set fee.
For the feasibility
For the
study.
feasibility study.
And that would be something maybe we wanna present at special town meeting? So it can
Right.
be appropriated and we can spend that time between now and next June doing the feasibility study?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
just wanted to see if I had the schedule in my mind like you did.
I might want to elaborate a little more on that, when you're saying assess and assist in making the RFQ. Might want to specifically spell out one of the tasks is to determine the needs of the fire station. You know, how many bays they need, what type of, there's got to be needs and wants. And believe me, the want list in the firehouse can be huge, so that's going to be really curtailed. That's you spend a little, but then again, compared to the cost of the structure itself, some of those wants may be reasonably warranted.
Plus room to grow in. You know how it is, you build a building and in 2 years you're like, I wish I had this other room.
Yeah, but, there's things like, obviously a break room. I mean, the people we have full-time are pulling shifts, they need a place that they can sit, they need a place they can sleep. And there really should be sleeping quarters that they don't have, because we have 24-hour ambulance personnel that really have chairs that lay back all the way to sleep in, they don't have beds. Which, I always thought that was wrong. I'm not an EMT or a medic, it doesn't affect me, but I just always thought it was wrong. And there's everything from different equipment now for drying gear when when you wash your gear, you just hang it out and let it dry. But they make a lot of different racks, you hang your coats and gloves and everything on, and the air flows through them on those racks. And
They're
it
actually
puts
drying
stuff-
it from the inside now, not just.
Right, it's better for the gear, and it dries quicker, keeps you back in service.
You're
It
always
always,
running around like your kid's hockey equipment in a bag
Oh
that
my
just
God.
stinks like.
but it always seems like
sorry.
stuff, the way the calls work, you get nothing, and suddenly you get 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And then you got wet gear and everything else, and it's really is a nuisance. But, you know, it'd be nice to see the guys have rooms to park a fire truck without guiding it through the cutouts in the wall. But
I
how
agree, so
how many
maybe just clean
bays?
that up a little bit.
Yeah, no problem.
Maybe they can even create a sketch of a floor plan that they kind of think that could roll into what the architect will build off of.
We'll look into the 1 station versus 2, and I think we'll find we're better off at 2 in town still, just because of the distance we cover to get to the far side of the town. The stations are separated by about 3 miles, so that's quite a difference. If you're taking a fire truck and you're going 3 extra miles, it's probably 5 minutes of drive time extra, and that's a huge difference. If there's a fire actually burning, it doubles in size every minute. So you're talking an exponentially larger fire if you're delayed by 5 minutes by getting there, and that's a big advantage from having these. Same thing, we have a lot of car accidents, we have a lot of major accidents in Southbury, and we do up in this end of town, and being able to get there quicker with the first responders from one station to the other. But that being said, I think part of the study, I think you talked about, is looking into the Southbury station as well. It's, you know, it's had renovations done to it as well, because we're using Station 3 instead of Station 2. But it's still not by any means a proper, you know, firehouse. It's an old building being used to store fire equipment, as is our Station 1. It's an old building used to store, it's an old DPW building being used to store the fire trucks. We really never had a firehouse in town that's actually really a firehouse.
Even station, the old
Oh,
Station
Station
2 was
2.
a school
Yeah.
that was renovated to become a firehouse.
So,
Right.
So,
you know, potentially Station 3 there are, I don't know the history of it. It was a Station 3 before. It was for the wool, for the berry wool down there, so I don't know if it was a dedicated firehouse back then. It may be the only one if it is, but, you know, I don't know if you've been inside there, but it's nothing impressive.
Is that the one next to the post office?
Yes.
I've been in there. Yes, I agree with you.
It's nothing impressive.
It's a glorified residential garage.
Right, with a little room out back that doesn't even really fully close off from the bays, and it's, you know, there's no people stay overnight there, we don't have overnight shifts there, but still. There's a lot to go in for this committee. It's gonna be a good undertaking to determine what to do and where and what's needed versus 1 versus 2 stations, and that's why it's important to have the chief and some other firefighter input in it, I agree.
Are we comfortable approving this? And then we can even amend it based on when he redrafts it, but this allows him to advertise it and start getting
I'm
people
comfortable.
that want to be on the board.
I'm comfortable
to-
sharing some input with you guys about this and commenting, but those are just ideas. I'm not gonna still get involved in approving or disapproving or voting on anything to do with it.
Okay, I got you.
I'm just trying to
So that's you and me, Dylan.
give some
Rick, shut up.
general light to it. Well, Andrew, that's
Yeah.
one thing I like. We have an administrator that's a firefighter. He understands that side of it, so you don't need my input as much. He has that input, and
Yeah.
he has a good rapport with the chief, I think, and you made any calls yet?
right about 6.
Made about 6 calls already in town. They've been him on the department here since he's on.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Not officially, it's more of in a role of assisting, but
Well,
set a gear up there so that way in the
He
instance
is,
it's
he's a
there.
trained firefighter, and
I got
Bob.
I don't
uses
submit
some
for
calls.
payroll or anything like that, I just. help.
Well, you can't, but you know.
Exactly.
No, I'm saying
Nothing
you
more
can't.
needed to be
Exactly.
said.
No,
We just
you-
got
you
another
can't,
guy that's
but
willing to do what he
We
can
do,
to help.
and, you know, we might.
Say any more.
We might want to put him officially in the firefighters, and I don't know the legality of this, but the firefighters are special municipal employees, which allows him to do both roles. You can't double pay him, so if he's on duty here, he can't be paid for it. But it might behoove us to get him on the roster. That's up to you guys to look into, because of the designation special municipal employee, it just makes sure there's nothing inappropriate about doing
That's
both
it,
duties.
yeah.
There's a big circle there you don't want to get involved with.
Yeah.
He's the boss of the boss that he's the boss of, that's the boss of him.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
we
why
are,
it's
we
not
are,
an official role.
And-
I got
yeah.
you. So if we leave him, if we leave him
I'll
out of
talk to you a
it.
little bit more about that.
All right, so if he goes in and assists.
Whatever
yeah.
works, and
Yeah.
If he can lend a hand for mutual aid stuff, then great, okay, that makes sense. So if
Yeah.
we put him on officially, we get into that whole, that technically working for him, and, gotcha.
That's all.
Then he can't be involved in discussions like I can, so. But
That's
it's,
the other
They
part,
just present it.
technically.
They just can't vote.
but there's an advantage to have someone that can help sometimes in town too, is the daytime hours is our tough time down there.
What's your thoughts on this, Dylan?
Good to be able to
Seems,
call mutual aid and they're right here.
very,
Yeah.
seems reasonable.
Okay.
I don't think we
So
have
we
resorts
should
to
go
mutual
forward.
aid lately, have we, in the daytime?
Go ahead and,
Come close.
There was one.
I move that we, accept
It was extended.
this charge
We had people, so.
Yeah.
for the creation of the fire station.
But it's, you see the challenges, I don't know how big your department is, probably not.
I second the motion to approve the fire station building committee charge as drafted. Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Vote's been taken, it's 2-0-1. We may amend it with some of the things he brought up, like providing more clarity and building the RFP and things like that. But right now, I'd like to do that so we can advertise to get people on the committee. No matter what, even the 2 fire department members, just please make sure that Bob knows they still have to submit the application to be on this
Yes.
committee.
Yep.
That way we can, just make sure if 5 people on the fire department has to be on it, we're not just saying Bob chose these 2.
You might want to limit it to the 3 too. You don't want to have too much.
Oh, right,
department input.
I'm just
That's
saying
just a
that
thought.
we choose those 2 out of those
For
5.
the same reason I have same stuff, I'd hate to see 5 flying
And I
come
don't-
out or something here too. I don't wanna.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I also want to take the spotlight off of, did Bob say these are the only 2 that'll come with me, so it's his guys only, versus he had 5 guys that wanted to jump on, and we chose which 2 of the 5, not Bob. Don't get me wrong, I'm gonna listen to Bob if he says, I think this guy knows what he's doing, I'm not so sure. I may listen, don't get me wrong.
I'll sit here and
But I
smile.
don't want Bob to get the public outcry of, you and these 2 are here because you said so, and I want people to be able to blame me, not Bob, that's all I'm saying. So. Or Dylan, you can blame Dylan too. Not Greg though, he's gonna abstain, so he gets out of this one. So anyway, that topic's done.
All right.
Let's get him over. Do we need to make a vote to advertise this, or just asking you to advertise it is?
That's fine. I figured that's
Okay.
inherent.
Thought so too, but.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Good job.
Thank you, Sam.
Have a good night.
Appreciate you coming. Make a motion that everything on this is good, go, let's go, no, go home.
8:30. We've got out of here at 8:30 before, but not
My
tonight.
humor is not always well placed.
I
Okay,
don't hear
special
any
town
echoes.
meeting. Yeah, exactly, I know it's on, exactly, nobody's out there. Special town meeting, we'll just let you bring it up because I do believe we need to vote on these dates,
Yeah.
considering one of them was requested to start today at some point.
Yeah, so basically we're just looking for, let's see. We'd be looking to open up the warrant effective today, really just to go to the end of the month. Close it 4 PM September 30th, which is Monday. Would give me a week to put the warrant together. Then you guys can review it the next Monday at your first meeting of the month. And then assuming that we have a DPW the next week on Tuesday, because that's the week
Columbus
of
Day.
Columbus Day. So that would be the day that you guys would hopefully sign the warrant, post it. We would still have enough time though. If we didn't have that meeting, we could have it, we could do it at the regular. We'd have to get it done that meeting.
I got it.
So,
So you're giving us potentially the 2nd and 3rd Monday of October to close it, but we'd like to
Yeah.
try to, the 2nd.
yeah.
Oh, that too.
We have items that really need to be addressed right now, or should we better to wait a little bit and see what we get a little further down the fiscal year before we hold the meeting?
That's a good question. I was curious what you thought were
Because
going to be
I
on.
don't know of any things that were pressing
So
to
nothing
get
that's
settled, so I'd
Right,
rather.
nothing huge pressing. It was really just a matter of, in the instance if we did put anything on the warrant that affected the tax rate, we at least have enough time to do it, but I don't foresee anything going on there. I know the planning board was talking about some bylaws that they wanted to put on, but then again, if we're opening up the warrant today, it's gonna push it.
I would ask them not
Yep.
to do anything for a special town meeting bylaw.
I'd rather
Please push
say-
it to
Yep.
annual.
Just like I
Okay.
said, these, I'd rather the bylaws be in.
I mean, yeah, they can run for their 200 signatures,
Yeah.
because I think that's what's required on special town, but
but-
I'd rather them not.
That much for a bylaw, it's more than the regular.
On a special town, you need a lot more signatures than you do on a.
Well, it's
annual
100
town meeting.
normally, but 10 in regular and 100 in special, unless it's more
Maybe
for.
that's what it was,
Unless it's
100,
more,
not
for
200.
unless it's more for a bylaw, but I'd rather
There
not
was
see
really,
it go
I mean,
over
there was really just a few cleanup things that were just kind of like, hey, during the annual, we had the wrong language written. Well, it was really, for one, it was for the sewer, I think for like the enterprise fund. It noted that it was all coming from anticipated receipts, where a portion of it was also coming from
Existing
retained
efficiency
earnings.
or whatever they call it.
Yeah, so that was something small.
We don't wanna go too late either, but we're 3 months into the budget this year. I'd like to try to roll it through and get through the end of the calendar year maybe before we have it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I was thinking of was if we took it, available funds to get the fire station planning committee going. That was really the only thing I was.
Feasibility study, having some
Right.
funds available to use.
Right. Does that need to be done?
Yeah.
It's gonna take
I hate to pull
2
it.
months
I-
minimum to just choose an architect.
Right.
You gotta post it, you gotta vet it, you gotta go through
Right.
it takes time.
But my worry is too, I don't wanna make this meeting the meetings do cost money. I don't wanna do the meeting just for this, then find out that 3 months now, something hit the fan and we gotta replace a vehicle or a piece of equipment or
Yeah, it
an
might be-
apparatus in a building, or something comes up that we need another special
So it
meeting
might
to
be
do
more,
it, you know?
I do hear it. I think that, looking at it again, it might be more beneficial to shoot for February, March, if we need it.
For a special
For a
time?
special. Because in that case, we will have free cash certified.
And that's a good point, if you're
We're
talking.
hoping
free,
to have it.
Well, then,
you know.
we're ready to submit September 30th.
Till I see it.
September 30th, we're close the books, we're submitting.
Sweet.
They're not gonna know what to do, it's like 3 years in a row.
How
with this
quickly is
town.
Power and Sullivan going to deal with the FY19 audit? Because I understand we got our 18 back only a year and a half after they had the data to do it.
We've been pressing them, so right now we're in that I have solicited other responses. Basically gonna have a frank discussion with them next week to talk about, we're setting the deadline, you're sending in a team to do the work. It's gonna be done by this point. Either you're doing it or we're going with your competition.
And there should be
I
penalties.
would also recommend draft up an RFP
And I-
and we'll just bid it
Mhm.
with our requirements. We'll give you this info on this, you will have 30 days to do this, and you will have 30 days to provide the final report after such.
Mhm.
And so within 60 days of us giving you whatever, we got a report, and you're not the reason people are saying, where's your audit?
Right.
Right, there's no reason.
I mean, I'm
Right.
just making up
Yeah.
numbers,
This
that
isn't
might
some,
not be
this isn't
reasonable.
some unusual thing we're asking for. This is something they should be able to turn around in a lot quicker time frame than they are, and they're certainly being compensated
And
for it.
so this was something I had a discussion with another auditor about, that I have some experience, that both Sharon and I have some experience dealing with. Basically kind of asked, if we brought you in, what's the timetable look like? He said that basically the way that his schedule is with his guys, they wouldn't be able to come in until April, which is beyond where we would look for as a timetable for Powers and Sullivan.
Coming in April, but then how long after that sending you the report? Did he answer that?
It was about,
Or she?
yeah, it was, he did say that, but I believe it was roughly a 8-week turnaround.
So
From-
still 60 days.
Right.
So show up in April and in May, June, you might get your report.
Mhm.
Is April the soonest just because asking now? Like if we had asked now for next year, in other words, would he be able to come in
That's what I'm not
more
sure.
in the fall than in the spring?
I could ask that, but we also have to be ready for them to come in when they do come in, so.
No, right, and I'm just,
We're getting close to
those
that.
are questions I have,
Right,
but
we're
either
getting better and
way,
better and
We're
better.
we're getting, we, hopefully within another year or two, we'll have these things current. You know, the idea is to have everything on us balanced as we go month by month, or 1 month back maybe. And I think we'll get there. It's made a big change, and if there's any needed changes in manpower, we already made one adjustment for a certain periods to have extra help. If we need to do more of that or something to make this go smoother, then we should. It's not a ton of hours we put in for that. But I think it's important that these things, that they have enough manpower to make sure that these things are done in a timely manner.
Mhm. Right.
So we're
It
no
does-
more than 30 days back, you know, by the time a month finishes, then the last month should be done.
Right.
one thing I would ask is in regards to obviously, this annual audit, this third-party audit occurs once we've closed all the books
Yep.
for our fiscal year, and actually, we have to go through the whole state process before we give it to the third-party auditor, right?
Which is why we need to be on time.
Okay. So, and I agree with you there, I'm not, but we need to document when we actually finish each step and when we make communication to the auditor saying we are ready.
Yep.
And their responses to when they would actually show up.
Mhm.
Because no matter what, I wanna be able to put all of that into a big old book if we ever ask somebody about a bond rating, and we can say, everybody we ask says, we can't get to you for 6 months, but here's our record showing we had our information in place 6 months before the auditor decided to show up. It's not our issue, it's an industry issue, where if you're not 40,000 or more population city or town, you're not a priority to all the certified state auditors, or whatever you wanna call them. You know, something, I just wanna be able to have an argument in place to help us support our position.
Right,
That's
and-
all.
You know, we were discussing this today, you know, it seems to be an interesting requirement that they're basically like, oh, you know, by March you need to have this done, where
Simple like that, just
we have plenty of.
year by year.
Yeah.
Here's when our books are done, we can sign it and date it. Our books are balanced, here's when we hit that. And that single
Right.
page, just straight up like that with 6 bullets, goes in a folder, and we keep track
If
of
we're
what
lucky,
we've
that's
done.
already in the finance policy.
It's
But
part of the
it-
policy.
I'm just admitting
Yeah, yeah.
how much I have not read yet, so I
But I'm saying,
apologize.
but that should be bang, bang, bang like that, and we
But
should have those
you
tucked
were
away.
saying something about the March
I
and
mean,
the,
if you look, let's just, you know, for example, you know, we were hammering on March, we should have by March, we should have by March. If you look in the latest Barre Gazette, Hubbardston just had their auditor come in and present it because they just finished their FY18 audit, and he was there to kind of give it to the Board of Selectmen, the overview of the findings. But there's never anything to say that, you know, Hubbardston's in default because they didn't get theirs until June, but for some reason it's been an issue for us that we've had our audits hanging out there. So it's almost like we're trying to figure out from the financial advisor, why is it that this is an issue for us, but other towns whose auditors don't come in until April or May
I think because
don't have that issue.
historically for a decade, we weren't having
Right.
our books even balanced till May of the next year.
And I think that that's
So
what it
we're
is.
six
just
to
historical
8 months
delinquency.
behind
we
on our
couldn't
books.
prove we were ready for an audit if an auditor still didn't
Right,
show up
so
on time.
we were getting
Now
our-
we hopefully can.
We got our free cash out, and that's the first disagreement I had, was free cash held up in that letter from the state, that free cash was held up because our stuff wasn't ready. After warnings that were unheeded and unanswered by the board back then.
We have
And,
had
you know,
progress the last 2 years.
we-
Each year we've gotten
considerably,
closer to our,
considerably, yes.
so
No,
I say a lot to all those that have been involved.
I would think
saw
the
your
state,
Facebook post, and I agree with or your report, putting in a good word on the finance members of our town government.
They work very hard.
I think the state's probably happy with our progress, that, where we were a couple of years ago, so that's good.
If not,
It's going the right
we
way.
just can't make them happy.
Well, you know what, once,
I'm just saying, if they're not happy
Once-
with the progress, then
once
maybe
our-
you just can't make them happy.
once our books are more than 30 days out, and we can turn around at close our fiscal year and within 1 or 2 months have, I mean, there's no reason. I mean, yes, there's some things that come through late and there's things that pays, but we
At this
should
point.
be able to get ready.
Yeah.
What's the deadline, October, isn't it, or?
The deadline, October
Yeah,
30th?
October 30th.
Yeah,
to
so
have
we'd
it-
be a
have
month
it.
ahead.
So, you know,
What we, right now, basically, we're doing a little bit of tweaking that we're still, I think there was one account that they were still trying to track the difference. They've been tracking this for a year. Basically, it was a variance between what the accountant had on her end and what the treasurer had on her end. They've been tracking that. They finished every other account except for, I think, 2. And those are the last 2, and they just need the auditor to step in and say, this is the number you need to go by, starting the beginning of the fiscal year. And by next year, they're gonna be monthly, right on
Gotcha.
the dot.
right, and that was a problem, that they were allowed to go so far without getting that balance done. It's so hard to catch up, and then you find out that this department, oh, this was wrong, so they made the addition, didn't tell that department they made the change. So then they would start right at that point working off 2 different numbers, and 3 months from now, when they go to balance of books, it's just all lackluster. Part of why, we talked about, we both said in the beginning, there has to be done on a timely basis. We have to have some sort of, we always talked about a reporting process to us, which we've never really asked for or enforced, to give us some sort of timely updates, but I think Andrew keeps on top of that, so we don't have to.
Well, they've made a lot of progress, so that's why I kind of backed off on some of that. But I know when I first started, I was asking for that, and
They were very.
boy, did it spin into a much bigger issue than I thought it would for us.
A
But
lot of
it's
department-
helped. I think we've all moved in the right
I
direction.
think a lot of department heads, for some reason, didn't want to deal with the select board, so I don't know how they used to deal with them. It was different, that they didn't seem to like, but they communicate, I think, better with us and better interdepartmentally than they used to, and I think that's helpful. I know there was an animosity between the treasurer and the accountant before, and I think that's gone now, obviously. But even before the personnel change, it was getting better. So. Kumbaya.
So old business, we have 2 things that I haven't mentioned yet. That would be and we kind of just talked about annual audit. I know this is probably
Actually,
more
those are
referencing the
so-
FY18 one, but,
Those 3 are actually under the financial policies and procedures.
oh,
Yeah, those are all
bullets.
separate
So we're
bullets.
ending,
Okay.
we're ending the special town meeting discussion to say we'll look towards February,
February, March,
agreed before.
Necessary.
Just so we
I mean,
officially close off it.
We might get to the point where we just hold it the same night as the annual, if we really get down to it.
If we don't need it, let's not spend the money and time on a special.
Exactly.
But I hear you.
Right, but
Right,
yeah,
so
but
I'd
once
like to
again,
get that
there's
money.
usually if the free cash comes in, and that's a good time to pick off a couple of wants that departments didn't get for, who knows, software updates or small equipment or something like that, to get knocked off a list, as well as getting the money set aside for the committee, to
So
do the
Ideally,
RFQ.
what I was my thought process was that, so you were notified of the grant that we received that's not officially public announcement till the
Right.
17th. Well, 2 years ago, we appropriated $25,000 to do one of those line items. So that money is still in our control and hasn't been used. So that's money that can be pulled.
Well, that was a capital item that's just been sitting there waiting.
Yep, just been sitting in a line item. So we could reappropriate that money without going to reserve.
We can
And without
repurpose it, but we
using the
still
free
need,
cash.
But
we
you still
still
need
need,
town
the
meeting
still
vote.
need the town meeting to spend it
Yeah.
for something, because it's not ours to spend.
Correct.
But yeah, that would make people happy if that money's already there, part of it.
So that's
Yeah,
what the thought.
That's good too. Yeah, let's look towards February, and if that's the only thing we're doing, then maybe we shouldn't do it. But then we have to. If we're gonna start that ball rolling, gonna have to do it. So why don't we just say February and figure out what works best in February?
Yep.
That'll be up to you, figure out that, of course, the whole timeline before that needs to start when, so we know what's gonna be in the way of it.
That
And,
means December. We need to start revisiting this if we
Sometime
want to
in
do something in
December, yeah.
February, because all the holiday.
So probably
I mean, it might
earlier
be
in
better
December.
March. Then we can at least get through the holidays and then start worrying about a special and then.
Sure.
I would say the first or second meeting in January, we just revisit the topic.
Yeah,
and then we figure out how to schedule this out.
Get closer to the date on it.
Unless, of course, something comes up and you're
Right.
like, hey, I learned, can we act on this quicker? And then you tell us, say, this is what we learned and we
That's
want
like
to.
we said, we don't know what's gonna hit the fan or come up or we need, so until then. That's why that, I'm not trying to poo-poo it, obviously, but if we don't have more going for it, why?
No, that's fine.
Why?
And
Thank
if-
you.
Tough enough to get 50 people in the house anyway.
And if a town vehicle goes down, it's not an emergency to replace the vehicle. We're just gonna give you some boots to walk through the snow. It's cheaper.
We had that approval.
You can fix that through your operating budget. I'm
Well,
just-
they can within reason.
I'm just-
To that end, the guys are going to look at the fire trucks soon.
Today.
Yes, I
they're-
saw that,
they're-
a post, he's out there in Wisconsin now, right?
Yes.
So shopping, right?
They may be sending back pictures and approving the vehicle.
Yeah,
That's-
so-
I think it's for the final inspection, I
Yeah, just
believe.
to give you guys an update on that, you know, their visit today will kind of dictate the timeline, but assuming that they have everything all set, there's no major changes. Right after they approve it, they'll send the truck to, Minuteman, to get lettered and the final electrical stuff put in. And I think basically the day that they guaranteed delivery by is looking like the day that we'll actually take delivery. So I think that around there, we're gonna try to do some sort of public event to commemorate the.
What time of year are we looking at? Are we
2
talking-
weeks.
2 weeks?
Couple
Okay.
weeks.
Very soon.
2 weeks to get it and then we still send it to Minuteman.
August
No.
26th. It goes to Minuteman, it gets lettered, it gets the stuff put in. So probably by the end of this week, it'll be on a truck going
Oh,
there.
okay. So by the
So-
end of this month, we
We'll
should have it to go into action.
It will- Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I better
But
understand what
we're
you're
hoping to
saying.
have some sort of public commemoration, you know, especially since we got some state grant funding that went toward that truck. It's the first truck that we've purchased in 20 years, brand new, so it'd be nice to make it a nice public event, and especially if we want to show the need for a new fire station, it'd be nice to show what the current facilities that it's going to be housed in.
Is rescue
I'm not
that
gonna
old?
say it, I had what would have been humorous to me, but
I
not
think
humorous.
rescue's less than 20. First engine
So
is 20
it's-
anyways.
For brand,
Time that.
we bought a brand new.
Rescue is new, yeah.
Well, first pump out 20 years.
But first engine is 20 years. I think the rescue was,
For the new truck.
I'm not gonna
No,
guess, I'm not gonna
I
guess, I
think
think it's
he
like
just has a
18 years.
ballpark day will have it, so are you saying that we should
We'll know better,
discuss a day that we would do some type of celebration?
we'll know better after their meetings in the truck.
Yeah,
They
so
have-
once
they
they.
can find a major problem
Assuming
with the
that they
truck.
sign off, they'll probably have.
So at
a
our next
timeline.
meeting at the end of the month, we can discuss,
We should have it.
because we
assuming
won't
that'll
meet
be
again
like
until
that.
then, so we can't get involved with discussing this.
I will let
event.
you guys know as soon as it's known, and hopefully we can just do that offline. And if it's
We
before
can-
you guys have a meeting.
We can plan to have an event and follow up offline and scheduling. We can schedule offline.
No,
As long
and that's
as we-
fine,
as
I
long
was
as
just
we approve.
thinking.
So, I
out
mean,
loud.
if we need to approve, we can approve. And then, you know, depending when it falls, when it comes in. It could happen quick if it's approved and goes for lettering. It shouldn't take that long, I don't think.
I mean, I'm not thinking about this huge overblown event, probably just like a little you know, commemoration ceremony. I'll talk more with Rob to see how he wants to handle it.
Okay. No, it works, I got you. Thank you. So, I guess we can move on to the Ocam Fire and EMS proposal. Have you guys had a chance to review this?
I did. Once again, obviously this is gonna fall squarely under the purview of the fire department, since this is, I mean, it's an intermunicipal service agreement. To that end, I have no problem having some discussion on it, but in general, some of the details when it gets into, I assume it's gonna get into salary compensation and employees for it, for covering shifts down there. I mean, I don't know if they're paying to cover people, personnel, and we're just managing it, or if that's going through our books. I don't know that end of it yet. If it's gonna be more obligations, is this putting more on the chief? Is it gonna change his salary? Because we're changing his obligations pretty severely if he's managing a second town. on a fire department, and those things I can't get into at all if those are it, but the municipal agreement to share, I can become involved in. I don't have a problem
So
with that.
it's no guarantee that this is gonna be moved forward. I know that Rutland's proposing a competitive proposal against it as well, so. And they might ultimately decide to keep it in-house anyway. They're just, at this time, evaluating their proposals because they had turnover on the top. So this is basically what we're providing for their consideration. And it would basically be that we, for the remainder of the fiscal year, operate their service within their budget. So all of the costs of operation would be pretty much put back to the town of Ocam to fund for the operation of their own ambulance and fire service.
Equipment in station and personnel, or? equipment
And
in
personnel.
station? Okay.
The goal would be to identify what the costs actually are, because it doesn't seem that there's a huge amount of documentation as far as what costs are really going
That's
into
been
the
their
service.
problem.
Right, so it would allow us that opportunity to say, all right, yeah, you know what, this is a good plan, it works, we can manage it effectively. In that case, we can set a dollar threshold to say, this is what it's gonna cost for us to operate this service, and then have a firm proposal to them by their town meeting, and they can decide then if they wanna make this a permanent agreement or not.
Their chief is, I believe, part-time chief in their town.
Correct.
And that's one of the problems in the small towns. When you have a part-time chief, they've got to have a full-time job. Like, it keeps them gainfully employed. And, it's difficult, the tasks that we put on the chiefs nowadays, and you've seen the stuff that's been on Chief Rogowski, especially when the ambulance service falls in the fire service. I look at the stuff that he does and say, how the heck does he find time to track all that stuff, get that data, do his budget, run his budget, schedule the personnel? There's so much going on. You just can't do it with a part-time chief, and I think that's why OCAM's struggling. There's no way, it's not faulting the chief, but you can't do all those tasks in a part-time basis anymore. There's too many regulations, this is, training you should do, training you need to do. Especially on the EMT side, the ambulance side, there's required training, required maintenance, required certifications. It's very hard to accomplish part-time. So I can't believe that they won't move towards this one way or the other someplace, because I think they've struggled with their ambulance service.
Mhm.
And if you listen to the pager, I don't know if you do, but you guys probably don't, they oftentimes have trouble staffing calls for fire or ambulance.
Right. And this would benefit them, because under our umbrella would allow it to improve to an ALS service rather than the BLS service, which is the only service that they can provide right now. It expands their opportunity to get to a fire inspector in the case that they have a closing or a tank inspection. They don't have to try to track somebody down that's only working part-time. But also from our perspective, we're gaining 2 additional ambulances in our fleet. So that way they can equally serve our residents, where we have an aging ambulance fleet that we're looking to actively try to fund to replace the 2 ambulances that we have, because they're getting up there in age and mileage.
Well,
So-
one isn't.
Well, one is newer, but it's already all pushing 100,000 miles.
Gotta remember-
Mileage, but I mean, age is a whole different thing.
Oh, well,
Right,
It's
right.
not the age of the other one even close.
Well, that's the thing.
And we're still getting the other one
One
going.
is
So
age,
a
one
fire
is
truck-
one is age, one is mileage.
We have fire trucks that are
Yeah,
25 years old.
They're
because
not like a cruiser sitting there with the engine running 24/7 and burning out the
Oh.
alternator.
Pretty close, they run a lot. The cruisers don't sit 24/7, but the ambulances goes out.
I just meant they're not parked with the engine running at the station nonstop. It's when they
No.
leave the station, they keep it running.
As
far as I understand and have seen.
I would accept, like, if it's down at Station 1, if it is outdoors, it has to stay running, stay heated, and the things that are in it. But generally, they do try to pull it in and out. But I would bet that ambulance is running on an average call, they go to a call, go to the hospital, and come back. It's probably hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And if they're doing 4 or 5 calls a day sometimes, it's going 8 to 10 hours, maybe 12 hours a day that's actually running. So it runs more than you'd think it does, I think.
I
Do
get
you know what I mean?
The biggest thing
It
that
runs
we're
a
looking at-
lot.
So,
of
I know in the
hours
past,
and a lot of miles.
trying to fill the holes in coverage, and the way that we've improved our revenue was by staffing those second and third calls. So right now, our ambulance two is a 2005. We had to do some major investments into it this year just to keep it on the road. If we go from managing 2 ambulances to four ambulances, and at least having that backup, as long as we get the personnel on the road to staff those ambulances, we can do up to 4 ambulance calls at once.
Question. That appears to only work. Our 2 proposals are different.
Right.
Proposal 2 does not give us that equipment.
No.
It
But-
actually implies we're gonna take our equipment and provide that service for them, and their equipment's gonna stay in a garage.
Right. Or they're gonna sell it.
Proposal 1 fits that, but we'd have to clarify, because it doesn't really say here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is there and I'm just not reading it right. I guess what, our chief would have complete control on the use and access of all the equipment that OCAM owns for fire and ambulance.
Correct.
So he controls how it gets used and where it can go.
Correct.
You may need to find out if OCAM is going to allow us to take an ambulance from their garage and park it at our garage for coverage per fire chief's discretion based on his belief of proper coverage.
So that's where,
That's
that's
that
where we're.
line of I'm concerned with.
That's where we're talking about this being a better fit for both towns, and being, we're not gonna, because if the second proposal, if you just want us to go in and provide an ambulance service to you, we'll do that at the same rate that we're providing the same service to New Braintree. It's basically, we said $15 a head. So to save money for them, allow us to manage the service to best serve the entire population, rather than just what's best for OCAM or what's best for Barre.
Does OCAM currently provide any full-time personnel that's staffing? They're strictly call, aren't they?
Strictly call.
Okay.
Yep.
And that might be something that be change in that, if we're gonna have, if we're using their equipment, maybe we have someone there full-time. So one person needs to come to the call to staff a truck, and it gives us another whole launching point to use if you're using their trucks in their town, rather than everybody always having, and that's part of what Bob did here, is by staffing the full-time, we get the trucks out quicker and we're making these calls. We're not, just waiting for people to show up. And I think that's part of the OCAM's problem too, is you gotta get people to come in. If somebody's already there, then one person shows, or they go meet him at the scene and drop the vehicle, they do that a lot too.
The truck-
Expands the possibilities.
The truck serves no use sitting in the garage. We have the personnel, they have the equipment. So that's what we're looking at, trying to.
I would ask you to
provide.
talk to Bob and also find out if in lieu of the potential annual fee, since we have the personnel, if an accepted agreement is in place for a certain number of years' coverage, is just transferring the ownership of that equipment to the town of Barre.
That would be the.
Because now we're not locking up debt in our books to buy another piece of equipment, and it's actually just transferred without affecting tax allocation and
Right.
debt.
So that's the goal of that second year, or after we get through that is.
The
you
first
know, the
13,000
the
trial period.
The trial period, let's make sure that the model works. If the model works, then we look at trying to acquire the asset.
And again, I don't know how
And
old
I
it is,
don't-
I'm with you on that, that's a
I
question I
don't-
would wanna ask Bob.
My thought on that is that their problem isn't in gaining and maintaining equipment. Their problem is maintaining personnel. And if their budget is already set up to maintain those assets, it's better for them to do that. We're already talking about the ambulance fees come to the town of Barre for doing the services, which means that eventually, if we put a full-time staffer there, that's gonna be our fee, not theirs. They would staff their call people, but we'd have to staff them full-time, I would think, If we're gonna, you can't say, okay, you're gonna come in, you're gonna put a new job on full-time, and then we'll do it for you. Or it's gonna eat up that $13,000 and then some. I mean, staffing a personnel full-time is expensive. But we need to get the ambulance fees to offset, and that's what Bob will do, is juggle and see what he wants to do. But to try to put the equipment back into our budget would be, you know, an ambulance is in the ballpark of $400,000, $500,000. If you're talking about doing probably one every 2 years, realistically, so they're 4 years old, should be with it, you know, they shouldn't stay in service that long for the miles they get on. Or maybe even every 3 years you do one, which would mean they live to be 6 years old. Now you're looking at us adopting, you know, $400,000 for a 3-year term, is $1.3 million. And then those fire trucks gonna be in the same situation. You have to roll over new fire trucks now. Even if you do, you should be doing a fire truck probably, what, every 5 years, 6 years, do a truck, probably a truck every 5.
Well,
Now you're gonna
ambulances
have
aren't the
$1
same
million.
as fire trucks either, and what I'm suggesting here is,
But then, we're
you're
talking,
right,
we're talking
mileage
both,
is big,
we're
but
talking
there's
both,
two things
we're
with
talking both
mileage
services.
you can do without having to buy a whole new ambulance.
Right, but they're talking about both services, fire and EMS, not just EMS.
Right, but I'm just talking about the ambulance right now. We're already talking about, we got one we're thinking we need to throw in the grave.
Right, it's.
If they got one that's getting used once every 2 weeks because nobody's available to use it, not because they don't have the need, there's just nobody's able to take the call, and it's only a year old, it would suit us to take that rather than go buy a new one to replace the one we don't, and take the one that's dying and put it in their garage for the random once every 2 week call. That's all I'm saying. For us, it would be a better equipment management to say, let's put that there, let's move this here. And then even on that, now you don't necessarily have to replace that one. You replace its transmission and its, you know, the wear and tear you get with the mileage, rather than the whole box, the whole cube and everything
Yeah,
else
but
with.
in 3 years.
That's all I'm suggesting, look at it. I don't know, there's a lot
It would
of
take-
variables
right.
that could say what I'm saying and make it not worth it.
That's why we tried to
but
make this as simple as far as a trial period, to figure out what it is that this is
Then
actually
you
gonna
can
take.
learn if that matters.
Because
or
it's
would
it's a
help.
quick turnaround that they're trying to investigate this. And this is pretty much, hey, you want a management plan, this is our management plan. Give it to us and we'll figure it out. We'll leave the expenses up to you, and then after a couple months, it doesn't work. We go our separate ways and you guys find a new way, or we
I
provide
believe
the
overall,
service.
equipment purchase, personnel, payroll, everything involved, the ambulance is still a losing number for the town overall. So to take on another full service and the equipment and everything else, we're gonna just assume more debt.
Right.
Ultimately, without getting too complicated, we're gonna assume more debt, not help ourselves.
Well, with this proposal one though, assuming we kind of carried similar,
Right.
it's still the town of Oakham's budget.
Right, but I'm saying.
Bob is
but-
just managing the budget they approve, so it's not changing that.
Right, but if we take the equipment, I'm saying it does. Now we're taking on a whole equipment end of it, which is where the trouble comes in making these ambulance services work.
Oh, no,
We-
no,
we would
no,
have
just to clarify what I didn't mean all the equipment. I mean, maybe there's a piece of equipment we can use to trade off for the services we're providing in lieu of buying another piece of equipment. Because that keeps it out of our debt cycle, and we've already talking about other things we wanna add to debt.
But if we
And
don't,
we hit a certain point where the debt you wanna take on versus your income,
And I think that we have to, I think part of
Balance.
that is discussing too, for the long term. If it's going to benefit both communities, how is that capital investment offset? Because it can't just be the town of Barre buying it if it's gonna service, or if it's meant to service Ocam just as much. So,
well, like
That's
whatever
something
we
else
buy
that
is
needs to be-
servicing New Braintree.
right,
That's part of our agreement. So if we
Right.
buy a new ambulance, we're still driving a new Braintree, it'd be no different than new Ocam.
and that's why we assess them more, you know,
Well,
on the
right,
per
we reviewed
head
and we
count. Right.
brought it up to what we thought was reasonable, I guess.
So I mean, 13,000 is significantly less than $30,000. So it's basically either let us manage it for 13, or let us just go in there and do it for 30. Either way, we're gonna get the ambulance receipts, because every time that we go into Ocam to provide a service, we're billing.
I would suspect though, when you do this, this is gonna open up a contract negotiation for the fire chief, because you're going outside his contract. And that's,
Right.
I
It's
can't
another
get
expense we
involved in
think
that, but that's another thought to this. It's something that's gonna have to be considered.
No,
by the board.
that was my first thought, and I'm not
That's-
saying it's unreasonable, but
That's
it's
what we
a,
considered
That's
administrative
certainly
costs.
not saying the fire chief of Barre, where I said, we've already gotten from the fire chief of Barre to doing the OCAM's New Braintree's ambulance service without modifying, I don't believe. I didn't get involved, maybe you did, but
We had.
I can see,
thankfully,
I don't
we
need
had
to
the
know.
ambulance before we hired Bob.
But I'm saying,
New Braintree's ambulance, I should say. So when we brought it in, it all, didn't we?
no. We added that.
We added that in the 6 months between when Bob got hired and I got elected?
I thought so.
Because he got hired
Well, it's close anyways.
July 1st and I got elected August 9th.
All happened before.
So I'm just
So I have
suggesting,
to
I
look
think
Yeah, I
there's an
thought-
ambulance agreement with the New Braintree prior to us giving ambulance control to the fire chief.
I thought it was the other way around, but I don't remember. I'm
I
not
have to
gonna- I
look at
won't,
the
I
dates
won't
on the
argue the
agreement,
point.
though, 'cause
I won't argue the point, no, I'm saying, I won't argue the point. I had the other impression, but I won't argue the point when I don't know, I won't
I
go
get
any
it.
further, but
Right.
it was not my impression. I could certainly be mistaken on it. But anyways, this
A
clearly
lot
would.
did happen in a blur in my life in that year too, so don't get me
There's-
wrong.
there's a blur. Everyone's
I
life
could
might-
definitely be wrong.
But this is gonna be a distinct change, and I'd be, have, probably you guys have a frank discussion with, I haven't said it, we talked to Bob about this at all, and I won't, but make sure he's even willing and interested. If he's not willing and interested, we can't force him to take something outside his contract.
Has Bob had a chance to look at these two proposals and
We've drafted these together.
he's okay with either one, depending on which way
We,
between the
he's
two towns
specific-
agree?
He's specifically pushing for proposal number 1.
Okay.
I think my meaningful input is done on this.
Well, I guess the only thing, and I think you can actually still, if you're willing,
I am legal.
just say, is this something we, the board, think we should approach the town of Ocam with?
Oh, yeah, I'm.
That's the only vote
I'm-
I'm gonna ask, is a motion to present this at town of
Because
Ocam.
I am a special municipal employee, I am actually allowed to have any vote in any part of the fire department stuff I want to. But my concern is, when looking further into the ethics, is that if, in that portion of the ethics, I'm fine because I'm a special municipal employee. However, if someone,
No, that you're on call one, you're not even a permanent, like a
anyone,
full-time member.
anyone has the perception that I may gain some sort of favor for the fire chief because of my actions as a selectman to the fire department. That perception creates an ethical dilemma. So although I can legally have things on it, I don't want to get involved too far where it does, this will never affect, I mean, if it's mutual aid to Ocam, we go anyways, it doesn't affect me. I won't, like I said, I'll never do ambulance services, I'm not involved in that. On the bureaucratic end, I'd rather point out the things that I think we should look for, but that you guys should look at, but I'm not gonna get involved in those discussions and deliberations of how they should go. I just think that because I have a little more insight, I'd give you guys some ideas to look at, but I'm not gonna recommend one way or the other, or push it. Not that I'm not allowed to, I just don't wanna get there because of the.
And I recognize where you're coming from.
It's so speculative to say someone can have an opinion that it's, you know, a benefit.
What's your thoughts on this, Dylan?
Well, I've just been trying to wrap my head around what you guys are all talking about, so.
Yeah,
But
you're about 2 years out of that conversation so far.
But if you're comfortable with this language, this proposal to OCAM, these two
What I'm
proposals.
comfortable with is, that's a good starting point to develop a final agreement.
Right, this is what we're looking at for the basis of discussion.
That's,
To bring
This
the-
isn't what you wanna fire off to.
we would
This
be
is what I
signing
want.
that with one of the other, well, the letter itself would be sent to Ocam.
To basically say, this is the basis of our discussion. This is where we think is a good starting point. We can
Got
get,
it.
just to get both, assuming that they see this as the most advantageous proposal to them, at least get them to the table to say, all right, we like this, except for this. We want to negotiate this part, or we want to see this. This is just to get us to a starting point.
Yeah, I mean, I see a $17,000 difference in proposal 1 and 2, and that $17,000 difference over a 6-year life of a truck is $102,000. It's a quarter of the price of the truck, so it doesn't offset.
Proposal 1 also carries an entire town of Ocam budget line item,
Right. Not saying,
where proposal 2 does not provide any of that.
that's what I'm saying.
So that-
The increase to proposal 2 doesn't even cover the cost of a truck over
But it also-
20 years, let alone.
It reduces
in the
Bob's
six.
requirement, because there's no fire,
But that's-
it's just ambulance.
And that's just their compensation back to us, that doesn't include the increased ambulance receipts that we get from
Right, there will
from
be
providing the
increases.
service.
And the fire service side of it actually is, I assume it still means they use their personnel, and they, the personnel go when they go, like we do at a fire now, and
It would just
We-
be
we
Bob
go-
managing it like it's another fire
the
station
the
in a
fire
way.
department probably goes about 5 or 6 actual structure fires in a year, so the actual calls for structure, are low. And Ocam does have, like us, they have their car accidents, it's a woodsy small town and back roads, so they go out for things like that on a regular basis, but I don't think it has nearly the impact on personnel or budget or scheduling as the EMS does. Because that's, even in their town, is a daily call, multiple calls a day, and we are probably running, I'm guessing 3 or 4 calls a day, maybe, must be more than that.
We had about 800 calls last year.
Yeah,
In a
so
count, in a
it's just
calendar
under
year, we're getting
3.
about 800
I think it's
ambulance
I think that's gonna
Barre.
increase
calls.
this
For
year.
Barry, for Barry, but including mutual aid calls.
I think that's gonna be increased, and they seem to go out an awful lot. And when I'm in my living room, I watch them go up the hill, I mean, they go up
I mean, just look at,
all the time.
looking at our ambulance receipts, they're
Yeah.
going up and up and up. This
Staffing.
last month, we had a great month of collections.
Staffing
and
more
one of the
calls
things-
makes a big difference.
Right, one of the things that we wanted to talk about at a special town meeting was taking unintended or non-anticipated ambulance receipts to try to improve staffing. So the numbers are going up.
I think we need to start looking at some of that and also taking unanticipated receipts with the intent that we're gonna have to buy a new ambulance
Right.
rather than staffing.
Right.
Unless you can show the staffing verifies an additional revenue.
Right.
And that might be a smart time to look at a stabilization account for purchasing equipment for the ambulance, and start their own stabilization account and put a portion of funds aside of all receipts, take a certain percentage of receipts.
What are
and they
those
go into that
receipts though? Are those
stabilization
our
account.
reserve account already? In other words, those receipts can't be used for anything but ambulance, right?
Yeah.
So it's already kind of ambulance-only receipts
Mm-hmm.
or ambulance-related
But
services.
if you start establishing a stabilization account, then the town budget annual will fund the balance what the ambulance needs, and that way we'll kind of be funding the
I
ambulance
gotcha.
without saying to town meeting, let's put money in the stabilization
Right.
account.
That
We're
was-
just gonna staff the ambulance, and we set the ambulance up so it automatically adds to that account on a regular basis.
Yeah, I follow what you mean
On
now.
whatever's gonna accrue the amount to purchase the ambulance in the time frame needed.
Right.
And then annually, we'll figure out what our budget comes to be, we'll keep and if those receipts come in, great, but we'll keep, funding that portion we need to meet the gap annually. And then we're not hitting the town for ambulances.
Right, and that was what the goal
400,000
was
at a
for
time.
this fiscal year, was to try to at least start, or, I want to say the next fiscal year, the next annual town meeting was to establish dedicated reserves for capital.
And place and money into them on a regular basis.
Right.
Okay.
So it's budget for them instead of buying them off the budget, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were gonna buy something and you probably want to set aside so much a month, if you have a special want or something, or you set some money aside for time frame, people do it for vacations, whatever, and just always try to set a little aside so it doesn't hurt. We keep getting hurt. Look at all the police cars we bought and lost. But they needed them. I mean, they've been, neglected for a long time.
Make a motion to, did you already send this letter?
I sent that to their advisory committee because they had a strict timeline. By tonight, they needed to have something to their Board of Selectmen for consideration.
Sure.
But just wanted to keep you guys in the loop, so that way. But I can, if you want to make a motion to make it a formal,
I would make a motion for you to revise the signature line to include the Board of Selectmen.
yeah.
Joe and I can come in and sign it,
Yep.
and then you can officially submit it on behalf of the entire town administration, the Board of Selectmen, as well as you and Bob, so that they recognize that all of us are in agreement with, this is a good starting point to discuss if you guys are interested in this concept. So that's my motion.
I second the chairman's motion.
Any other comment?
I'll abstain from any of that.
Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Yeah, I know that they want it today was the deadline for applications for the fire chief's position, so they were gonna see who they got for applicants before they made a true determination on how to.
I'd be surprised if they don't want to try this interim and see how it works, because they've been struggling with the chief position for a decade over there, I think.
Yep.
There's issues back and forth. Not struggling constantly for the decade, but there's been turnover and different issues, and turnout has been at different levels. And who knows why that is? I don't know if it's personalities. I don't know if it's just people just don't have the personnel. I don't know the reasons. But it's hard to overcome any of it with a part-time chief, because he can't get anything accomplished that he wants to when he only gets so many hours a week.
No.
So we'll go from there, see how it goes, and I'll let you guys know how they respond.
Next item, CMMPO representative. This is a kind of a regional representative
A nice
for
weekday
the
meeting.
Central Massachusetts Metropolitan Planning Organization.
It's at 5 p.m. at least.
If I'm correct, there is the North Subregion communities of the CMMPO, which goes from Barre to West Boylston and Paxton up to Princeton. Has a representative on this. There are actually 6 sections of the Central Massachusetts Metropolitan Planning Organization, and each one gives its own selectmen of any one of those towns to represent that entire sub-region. So currently, our current representative is from West Boylston.
He's done soon.
I'm very bad at pronouncing names, but I believe it's Barre or Rajesh Kumar.
Rajesh Kumar.
Rajesh Kumar, that probably is much more likely to be said appropriately. His term does expire at the end of September, and community officials must now meet to select who will represent them for the next 3 years. They're asking, the CMMPO staff is requesting that the Board of Selectmen send a selectman to attend a CMMPO information and member selection meeting at the Beaman Memorial Public Library in West Boylston, Thursday, September 19th at 5 p.m. The reason this is on the agenda tonight is for the 3 of us to decide which one wants to go, so you can not only learn how we identify our sub-region representative, but potentially decide whether you want to be on the ballot to be identified as the sub-region representative for all the towns. This is actually a really important and critical role in the state that most people underestimate. And if you look at the towns in our region, West Boylston, Holden, and Paxton are the 3 that abut Worcester.
It says map attached, but you know.
Oh, you didn't get it?
Oh, that's all right. I don't know where he's pulling all these towns out of. It's just, are they not written in here?
You know what it is, I didn't include that one with the original one, but you got your own.
I got the original letter that came with the original
Yeah, I
map.
was trying to look at that in the email tonight, but I just didn't have time to get through everything to
So,
read it all.
All I'm suggesting,
It's
and
just
I'm not
items.
saying that, I'm not saying Barre didn't represent our interest. I'm just saying that West Boylston, Holden, Paxton being as close to Worcester also means they may be just as influenced by Worcester. Especially because they have other agreements with Worcester. They have shared resources, shared reasons, like, I'm sure one is sharing water with one of the towns, one's sharing
West
this and
Boylston's
that.
highly commercialized compared to Barre as well.
And that's we have a different demographic.
So, you know.
So I do wonder if we think someone further west might have a different representation than what we currently get. and how it may help us based on how the entire Central Metropolitan Planning Organization, or whatever they call it, Central Massachusetts Metropolitan Planning Organization, reviews the big picture build-out that they present to the state on behalf of the whole region.
And I wonder what kind of things they're actually covering. It says the spending of federal funds for roads, it's very vague.
Right, I mean,
Those funds are probably broken down to many categories. And I don't know if they're looking at all those, if they're looking at development, maintenance, bridges.
mainly,
You know,
it's maintenance of, the, TIP program, so Transportation Improvement Program. I see their agendas pop up every once in a while, that they're amending their plan, that they found additional monies and are moving a project in for funding considerations, so
What this
having
state,
a representative that
what this
represents
state really needs is to connect rail systems between Boston, Worcester, and Springfield, to connect the state. You know, not just with roads. where you
The
don't have
state's
all
so
that-
screwed up.
where you don't have all this traffic. I
Quit
drove
investing in
drove into-
infrastructure and traffic to get people to Boston. Start investing in
Well-
jobs where people don't have to travel 70 miles to get to work
No,
and
but I
back.
had to interact with the city of Boston today, with this government in Boston today. And I tell you, parking garage for an hour cost me $38. There's no place to park otherwise.
Costs the same to take the train in and out.
No, you could get a Charlie pass a weekend for $10.
$20 to get there from Worcester, back and
Oh,
forth.
yeah. But still.
So I'm saying from here,
But
if you're
I'm
looking
saying-
at regional transportation,
Well,
it's
but
still
the-
gonna
but-
cost you $40 to get there and back.
There's gotta be a way that, you know,
Yeah,
that's the thing.
car-
But at least
Those
you don't have to
funds-
worry about your car getting hurt.
Or paying the fees, the gas, getting stuck in traffic, a lot of things, but that's what stops me from going to the city more, is I hate driving the city. Don't like it, don't like the congestion. I go out to Springfield area sometimes, there's things to do out there, but, the roads, who knows, how do we improve the road for that? I mean, the Pike's the Pike, they're not gonna make it wider and get room for it and do anything of that, but.
I'm guessing you guys have also noticed, if you pay attention at all to the news right now, the hot topics on Beacon Hill. Transportation, how do you resolve the transportation issue, and how do you resolve this and that? And they keep talking
Yeah,
about
but-
loading more money into Boston
Yeah, they're just
to
talking
fix
about
their
Boston.
problem.
Yeah, it's all about Boston.
And my point is, you're not gonna fix transportation in and out of Boston.
Nope.
So quit asking people to drive in and out of Boston every day. And how do we get that voice heard? Places like this. And I don't know if either of you are interested in trying to see if you can represent some type of voice saying, help move the population out of Boston, not find a way to get the population to go in and out of Boston every day, 2 times a day. That's how you're gonna fix your transportation, is not trying to get everybody to move to the same place at the same time.
Problem is, everybody wants to be in Boston, I just don't understand it. Just wants
The
to
only
be.
people that wanna be there are people that either need the job and you get paid more because it's
Yeah.
Boston.
Pay a lot
But if
more.
you don't live there, you get to take the cream off the top because you're now driving in and out to own cheaper property here and then go work there and make more money. Or you happen to be a college student that likes to be able to just walk to easy
Well,
access activities.
There's a lot of people that live that way too. I noticed there's a lot of people on foot in Boston every day, just doing their business on foot without cars and without things, and there's a convenience to that. But yeah, their problem
Yeah,
is.
but they're not the transportation problem.
Their problem
They're
is-
walking.
Their problem is the commuting, you know. And,
What was the last big business brought into Massachusetts?
GM. And they're
Where did
gone.
it go?
Right back out of Massachusetts.
But it
It's
was
supposed to go to Boston.
GM,
Yeah.
Amazon,
Yeah.
right?
The-
Amazon went to
Yeah,
Boston?
Amazon's going to.
Where'd the Encore
Really?
Hotel go?
But they're going there because they say the population's there.
Where the
Exactly.
Well,
gambling
the truth
casino go.
is, the population will move wherever Amazon put their friggin' property. If Amazon drops something right in the middle of,
Orange.
or even go further west,
Yeah.
within a year, 1,000 homes are built, 3,000 people moved in, and, or however many houses, what they want, 50,000 workers?
Yeah.
That they'll cut with all robots and only have 2,000 workers by the end of 2 years from now?
I mean, I don't know.
That's
how
all
to-
I'm saying is, they didn't need to go there for the population. They went there because of some political move.
I don't know how much you guys hear about Western Mass news, but the Holyoke is getting a Amazon distribution center. So,
Right. Which is no different than UPS in Shrewsbury.
so
Because that's what Amazon's doing, is
Yep.
trying to get rid of
They're trying-
UPS and just take it over.
yeah.
Which is what they're good at. Bully into the industry, take losses for 5 years till the competition dies, and then jack your prices up and move on.
So anyway, we'll see.
So
I
what
don't
I'm
know how
trying to
you guys
get at
want.
is, are either of you interested in going here and representing the town? I am kind of, it's really hard for me to make a commitment for that in the next week and a half or whatever the 19th is from now.
Thursday 19, at least it's at 5 at night.
But I do believe, given the option, one of us should be there, and I was kind of hoping one of you two might be able to.
I would think I could go to the meeting. I don't think I want to put my, we'll see what I wouldn't want to put my hat in and get in that committee right now. I still have my own issues going on that are months from being settled and done. So it's.
But you might be able to tell us how the process
Right,
works.
right. I
and
could go, should be able to go to that meeting for the
How-
for the 19th.
How do we vote on this? Because I don't know if you're the only one that can vote, or if every selectman in the entire sub-region can vote. They just got to know how to do it.
Yeah, it sounds like the committee votes, but we don't know. We don't know until we get there and see what they have to say, but.
I think the intent is that he's supposed to represent all the towns, so I think that he's the only one that has a vote when it comes to the actual appropriation of funds.
We're
You can go to any
voting that
meeting.
representative.
Right, you can vote that representative.
How do we do that? That's what I'm
Probably
saying.
all
Is
the-
it every selectman can get online, or each select board can only provide one representative to ask to find out who? That's what I
One of
don't
those- one of
know.
those-
And that's what this meeting is supposed to
Yeah.
explain. I
I'm
think.
guessing that it's probably gonna be,
The selected
Done.
officials at the meeting make a vote. This
Right.
is my guess.
because.
And if I'm correct, I think Kathy Inman did this for the town before. For some reason, something tickles the back. Like, she used to be one of our representatives on this, and it did slip there for a little while. Now, I don't know if she was the sub-region representative. I just meant, I think she represented Barre, talking to those that worked it up the chain. I don't recall. But that may be someone else that, if either of you are interested, you make a phone call, you might get some answers on what experience she may or may not have had. I may try to reach out myself just to hear what she has to say on it, but I haven't had the chance or made the effort yet.
I looked at that when the email came in. I said, yeah, that would be something good for one of us to go do.
So, are you able, Dylan?
I believe I am able to attend.
Well, what I would like is to see, could you guys get back to the three of us somehow, or even through Andrew, so we can confirm who can go, and that way the other one doesn't feel obligated, and,
Well,
because I know he said he believed he could, and.
I can always go. I don't, the topic doesn't interest me. I know it's an important topic, so I said, if you need someone to go, I'd definitely go. But I don't know if it interests you. It doesn't really interest me, that topic at this point. And I wouldn't be interested in trying to get on the committee, and I don't know if that's something you would have interest in getting on the committee. And looking into it, I mean, it really, it's gonna be informative, I think, and it's gonna be educational to see how some of this works, but
Yeah.
I struggle to believe that we're gonna get much of an impact out of it, and maybe I'm wrong.
Ah, I see, I'm looking at an outdated calendar. I'm like, oh, where's September?
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh, wait, that's a Wednesday, not a Thursday? Okay, I just wanted to confirm, that is like a week and 2 days or 3 days from now.
This is the 9th, so it's 10 days from now.
Yeah.
A week from,
Okay.
not this Thursday, the following Thursday.
Did you want to attend, Dylan, or if I could attend, you'd rather me attend? 'Cause
I would attend. I don't imagine I will be putting my hat in the ring to be the regional representative, but I would attend. But maybe I'll be so inspired by what I learned that.
You never know,
I'll
you
get
might
caught
say,
up.
wait a minute, you know,
I
but.
mean, that's the thing, sometimes you don't know, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh,
We have no
I see the
idea.
avenue, or
Yeah, we have
I
no
mean,
idea.
this, I would like to learn more about this topic. It's a bit out of my wheelhouse, but I think that this would be an interesting.
I think it'll be educational, that's
Yeah.
for sure. I think you learn something if you go, but. Well, I would make a motion then, do we let you be the representative?
second that. Any further discussion? Call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I
There you go, Dylan, thank you much.
All right.
say with such
Let us
conviction.
know whatever you learn when you come back, because for all I know, you'll go there and you say, I learned a lot, but nothing
I am
happened.
interested to see what.
But
is-
something's gonna happen next week and we'll be like,
I
oh,
am
thanks for
interested
that.
to know what they actually do and what sort of control they actually have. I mean, are they just an advisory committee to the feds? Does the Fed really listen to them, or are they gonna demonstrate they've had control over funds and what gets done with it? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm
But-
also, yeah.
but
an
so
interesting
curious that
thing
I
to
really
get
wanna
sort
go.
of 11th hour like this.
Yeah, and
You got 10 days, come on.
Rajesh Kumar, let me take it with a grain of salt. My really remote relationship on Facebook. He has come off as a nice person that is open, and if you had questions, you could ask him and he would actually answer them. So, but like I said, it's really been a remote, but he seems to support people that do what we do, which is pretty much volunteer your life away to try to help your community.
You could be just up for another 3-year term, who knows?
Oh, well, exactly.
He
I
could
just
not be
meant-
stepping down just like, hey, does anybody
He
else?
doesn't
wanna
come
do
off
this?
as someone that if you had questions, he wouldn't answer. So I was just bringing that up in
You're
case.
like, I'm not interested in giving up my seat.
He is on
I just gotta do
Facebook,
this.
so if you looked him up and you wanted, he might answer questions for you.
Yeah, I don't doubt that anybody involved in an organization like this would love to illuminate some of these details to anyone who's willing to learn, because this is probably pretty dry. And it'll probably have a lot of volunteers busting down the door to
Exactly.
get on the Central
As a matter of
Massachusetts
fact, he's looking for
Metropolitan
anybody
Planning
to say,
Organization.
please take this, please take this. I learned enough. Okay, so, that's been done, let's get on. All right, I will listen to anything you guys may have, but number 8, we have the Barre 250th committee applications. We have a minimum of 4 applications before us. I am going to name them by name.
Do we have spots on the committee already? Do we
I
have
thought
any
the
members?
only one I remember was Charlie.
Right.
And I don't even know if we
Because we had
officially
talked-
did it, but he was on the board, he asked me, he said, sure.
Right, I know the discussion at the last meeting was, we didn't have anybody that was on it, we didn't have a quorum, and then as soon as the meeting, or the next day, we had 4 applications, so.
Good.
So in front of us today is an application from Dennis Fleming, an application from Richard C. Stevens,
I believe that's junior,
the
right?
younger.
Junior, yes.
That's the younger, I do believe. Kristen Shepherdson and Rebecca LaVenture. So, I will make a motion that all 4 be approved as active members of the Barre 250th anniversary, what do we call it?
Anniversary
Development Committee, or what?
250th anniversary.
There you go, 250th Anniversary Committee.
Is that the quadridecennial, centennial, something like that?
Sure.
There you go.
Pull out your X's
Exactly.
and V's.
So, anybody have a second, or any questions about the 4, or do you feel more, you'd rather break it out into individual?
I've never heard of Kristen Shepherdson before. I know all the rest of them. Not that I'm
I
suspicious.
don't know Rebecca or Kristen, but I mean, it's, people want to come up and be in the committee, especially, I'm just looking at what they do, an intake coordinator and someone is crafting in a business owner. I mean, those are things that, talents, all these things, different talents people bring into the board is nice to see.
Yeah.
You know, as we know, Dennis knows a lot about the town, a lot of contacts in town, a lot of history of the town. He's been very active. And Rich Stevens, from town, his father's, well, I was hoping it was his father first, because he's older, but he's been around a while, but I mean, still, families from town, they know a lot about town, have a lot of contacts. He was a fire chief, so he has, you know, skills as far as managing an office and stuff like that, and probably a lot of contacts, and I think it's good,
How did the 225th go off? Because he was the committee chairman then. I don't remember. I was 14.
I was not here.
Was there a 225th? I don't know.
Related experience, 225th committee chairman.
That's I didn't even read that properly. For some reason, I thought it was referencing
But
something
was it for
different.
Barry or a different town?
No, for Barry.
How do you know?
Those Stevenses don't do Barry.
Really?
I have to do the math, 97, 99.
He's been fire
at
chief one of the
25
towns.
years, and that puts us at 2024.
So you don't know if he was on committees or,
No.
he was pretty involved in Phillipston and, I think Templeton as well.
But they've all been living on that road for
It's the
forever.
math.
I think he lived out of town when he was doing that. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But I second the motion for the floor.
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you, Dennis, Richard, Kristen, and Rebecca for applying for and wanting to participate in helping in the development of our 250th anniversary celebration.
Someone let
I
Charlie,
await your recommendations.
someone might want to reach out to Charlie and let him know he has 4 additional members to his committee
Yes.
and maybe get him the contacts.
Please, when you do reach out to them, make sure they have a copy of the charge.
Yes.
And make sure all of them get to the town clerk and do their official swear-in thing, and then they can meet and vote and play their game.
Got it.
Thank you, sir.
I thought we'd see Charlie floating into meetings for a while afterwards.
I hear
think he's
he's
had
been
enough.
enjoying retired life a little bit more than we
Yeah,
thought he would.
Probably.
Digital records management.
So I know this was requested to be put on the agenda at the last meeting. I basically just dug up the proposal that was presented as part of the capital plan, because we had talked about what was gonna go into it. So this is basically the cost that general code had given the town clerk's office back in 2017 to basically come in and scan in all the documents and make them, all of her permanent records to make them digital. So the total cost was somewhere around $60,000 once you break everything down and add it all together. But give you an idea as far as, you know, what the costs were. But could be something that we go for in the next year.
Is that something that can be done in portions? A couple of years, or is this something we really need to hit all at once?
I could ask her if she could
She might go back,
present on it. and
go
ask-
back so far in the first time frame to go back and do it again, or maybe they give us, maybe it's a different pricing if they do it twice. But she's obviously gonna be a software upgrade with that she can access that stuff, right?
Right, no, it would be actually be a cloud-based system.
So I assume that's gonna be a chunk of it anyways, is that?
Is this something that we can actually act on, or we have to develop a scope and bid it?
I would imagine that we could probably act on it because general code is
That's a
probably
large
gonna
sum.
be on the
You know, a
state
lot of
rate.
times you still have maximums of 25,000
Yeah.
and 50,000 on those contracts before bidding is still required.
I'd still feel comfortable whether we are allowed to or not at that number, throwing that in front of the town,
Yeah,
just
we'd
because of the
still-
number, whether we have to or not.
At least we have the base scope that we can put out to bid, so.
I do believe this is important, but there's one thing that's really important from my perspective and my learning lessons. Scan them all you want, but if you don't have a standardized nomenclature, file naming, and storage setup, you just created a whole bunch of mess. You're still not gonna know how to find anything.
Can't find them, yep.
So somehow within that scope or whatever, we need to know that there's a review process with how they will do that. And we get to look at it and say, no, I want you to move this there and move that there because that works for how we do business.
Right.
You know, so we need to have that kind of ability to have a back and forth saying, we love it, we want you to do it, just get it done. We're never gonna dig out of this hole if you don't just get it done.
Take the whole library full of books and that Dewey Decimal System, you'll know exactly where everything is.
Yeah.
And this is just not the same with this stuff. There's so many topics and so many things, and they're all not individuals or alphabetized. I don't know, it's a daunting task to figure out how the heck they organize them, that they're searchable, unless it's just keywords in the search and
And
they
this
pull up
is
anything.
this all of town documents or just the clerk?
Just the clerk.
Okay, so we're not even close
Right. Just
to the whole
the clerk's
process.
Yeah, the
Okay.
clerk's permanent records, that's pretty much what we're, birth records, and stuff like that.
Can I ask what isn't covered in the clerk's records? Like
That I
what
don't-
is and what is not?
I would defer everything to her. This is basically just part of her capital proposal that she brought forward.
I would think everything.
Just as a topic of conversation, because it had been brought up, so, I haven't really had an opportunity to really talk with her about, hey, this is exactly what we're looking to do, but assuming that that's.
I think it's more for her archive things. I think most of the
Right.
things she's been doing for the last several years, I assume, are digitized and online. But anytime they have to go back and look things up, the archives, you gotta go into the vault, pull the old records, and that's labor intensive. And then those things get damaged and you're done for, they're gone. It'd be nice to get them digitized to protect them as well. And then if they are still stored someplace in the vault, at least when I'm interacting with those papers, it's like a piece of art. The more you go interact with it, the more damage and deterioration happens to it. So to not interact with that vault with personnel in there, breathing humidity, moisture, and being around the papers, the documents will last longer where they are as well.
If you
Because
can maintain a controlled environment better, you're right.
Still think it's important to keep those old papers as long as we can, and, as they're old enough, they become historical documents. I mean, they're, but to not have to interact with them, I think would be monumentally important.
Okay. No, as long as you guys are okay with this, then I'll plan on having Alan come in and talk to you guys more about what the proposal is.
If we can break it down and spread it out,
Yep.
easier to take. If it's reasonably done, if it doubles the cost to break it down, then it's not worth breaking it down.
Right.
It's not that big a number, but it's big enough that the town should have a say on it, I think. No matter what our ability is to do, I'm very much against not getting town input when we can. I don't feel like, we can do this without telling the town, because we're allowed to. I would rather let them have the input. If we have to proceed on certain things because they come up and we need to proceed and we're allowed to without the town input, then we do it. But if there's no need, this is my opinion, you guys express what you want, but my opinion, if there's no need for us to act without putting it before the town, whether we have to or not, these purchases get over $20,000-$30,000, I think they really need to go in front of them, and let them have the say on it. I don't like to say, wow, if it's heated, it's a 50-50 split.
If it's above and beyond an operational budget
Yeah, we
decision,
can't.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
But if it's something that, you know what, I can fit it in my budget,
If it's reasonable money, like $20,000, sure. 60,000, yeah. And I don't know where that number actually.
if that happens, it's only because you're actually somehow able to offset the labor you thought the budget was gonna be
Right.
spending on it anyway,
Right.
so
I
it's
don't,
like
I don't know what that number actually is where I'd feel comfortable saying, okay, this fits and we can do it, let's get it done. There is a point where that's okay, but it's just a big enough chunk. I think it's necessary. I think we're all gonna support that. I am, I don't, it hasn't said yet, but.
The next one that is, well, I think there's two more things that are commonly, one, the records retention is a long retention period, and commonly takes forever to get into an electronic format. Building department and the assessors. So we may not only need to look at what Ellen has to propose, but we should look at the other two to find out if this is a bigger scope that we should be looking at to include all of them. And I agree, we still need to find out if Ellen's saying, well, I kinda already ballparked that, this is what this is. let's figure that out. If not, we should look to see what we should, because building records are lifetime.
And sometimes if you jump forward with a bigger project, it doesn't double your price, it just goes up a little bit more because you're adding a little bit more to the scope.
I mean, a property record card should already be envisioned, that software, and we just upgraded that this last year with the 15,000.
It would, but it wouldn't be anything that we maybe got permits 10 years ago for.
Oh, building permits, you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, but those should show.
Drawings, everything that comes in with a
Oh,
permit,
yeah.
you cannot throw out.
But as far as the
You gotta
permits
keep
have
it
gone
forever,
through,
apparently.
the permit should go through, and before they're closed off, they should hit the assessor office for approval.
I don't know the details.
You know, they should get approved by assessors for reappraisal before the final's given by the building department. So the appraiser should be up to date, at least in the valuation and their notation of what the property is. But yeah, whether or not we have a digitized form of what was taken up for permits and plans, who knows?
So we'll look at this as a priority for the next,
Then expand
Fiscal year.
the scope a little.
yep. Then look at expanded scope.
Fiscal year budget. Well, exactly. So this is gonna take time, not only to get the information and the numbers, but then also go through the finance committee process and budgeting and.
We talk about all this digitizing of these nice things, and we still, just a little reminder, have many, many residents in our town that can't access these things online because they have no internet.
Yes.
We've kind of fallen off that topic, so maybe we need to get an update next
Right.
meeting or something.
Well-
And not now, it's not on it, but.
So I was kind of, it is. It's
Kind
here.
of is.
I just didn't have anything
Ah.
to put in front of you.
I don't have those on my face right now, so I'm, you notice I keep moving my documents further away every week as I read it.
So,
Kind of pretend I can see them up close, I can't.
from that perspective, from that standpoint,
Get the font bigger, Fredman. I'm just.
I do that when I print stuff.
we,
I understand, I do.
I
Picture my
have had
phone.
Charter go out and give me a price for all the underserved areas that we were able to identify, because we went through the process of asking everybody, do you or do you not?
I know we did that, it was high.
Right, so we still have that high number.
We're gonna look into individual contractors giving us a price to run wire, and then if we still own it versus, well, you try to take it once we put it in.
Right, and I think that was really the cost, it was the cost for Charter to where, I couldn't get a firm breakdown as far as what they basically had was like $3,000 per pole that they had to touch for add-on fees, and I don't know if that's just licensing or what, or how they come up with that number, but I'm sure that Charter is probably subcontracting that work out to somebody else to do
Oh, yeah.
that. So I don't know if we'd even be able to do it for any less, considering, you know, the logistics of having to tie into their systems.
Yeah.
I know that, so there is a,
See, when they say
Grant.
per pole, though, do they mean per pole we go by, or do they mean per pole they tie in at for someone's house?
proposal they
What-
go past, because some of the longer
Okay.
runs that they
The
have that might.
mounting of the cable to each pole
Right.
to bring it down the
Right.
street, I think is what he meant.
Because they don't own,
Wow, that's.
they don't own the poles. National Grid owns the poles, Verizon owns the
They own some
removal.
poles.
They're basically
That's
the
their
middle.
shared cost
because-
is,
Right. So,
Verizon's the last to change their wires, so they're the ones that pull the pole when they're done.
right, right.
They're all labeled for, you know, Electric or Verizon, who owns the pole, actually on the pole, but now they share them, so.
Right, it's usually both a split ownership between Verizon and National Grid, and it used to be
Separate.
one or the other, but
And they leased it
recently
back and
they've
forth.
come into an agreement where National Grid sites the pole, they own it when it goes in, then when it comes out, it's Verizon that owns it, because they go from the top down as they take the wires off.
I need to be Verizon in that one.
They don't have to buy the poles anymore.
Right, but they have to demo hazardous waste now. The
Yeah,
last thing
so I
I
think
would
that-
want is in the future say, yeah, let me deal with the hazardous waste in the future. As the regulations get tighter and more expensive.
I would bet I bet they repurpose most of
They're
those. I bet,
pushing wireless.
Well,
Verizon's like, I don't
down-
want that anymore.
went down to Myrtle Beach and they're building everything on poles now.
I
So
interrupted
they
you,
might
Andrew.
No, it's
they
all
might
right.
repurpose a lot of these, so much length left in use in places.
So next week, I'm meeting with a representative from the USDA. I want to talk to him about their you know, the loan programs that they offer for building of public facilities, mainly for the fire station, and see what kind of loan options are out that they can provide, possibly even a grant opportunity. Well, I have them, I wanna talk to them about a program that they have about connecting, rural areas that don't have, cable service. Looking through it, it kind of looks like the purpose of the grant is to try, or that program is to try to connect the town halls that are in the middle of God's country that have no service whatsoever. However, I don't know if there's any sort of dedicated funding for the Northeast that is already pretty well built out, that they might say that, well, you know, you're not competing against those projects, but because you have enough rurality factor, that we can accomplish that with the funding that we have. I at least want to see if that's an option. Keep it so that way we're not pulling it out of our pockets.
Free money's good money.
To service one road.
And have we looked into this, what do they call it, 5G? The new pole top mounted wireless things that cover
You're gonna have
broad
to have
areas.
fiber optic running along the poles for those pole top wireless devices to connect to.
And,
So we've only got 2 roads in town that run significantly far enough to do that.
And just the thought is it'd be obviously
my
gonna
understanding.
be more of a cost, but if you do an upgrade just to get people service, how much more are we looking at to an upgrade to get our town
Todd
the
Miller
faster,
is,
better?
yeah, Todd
modern
Miller
service.
is looking into that extensively and trying to, you know, talk to the right people to pursue that. The issue that that they're having, or that he's gonna have with it, is that what's a better test market? One that's got, 100,000 people that they can service with one pole, or they're only gonna get 20. That's kind of what we're going up against, because if you see the most recent Verizon commercials that they have during football games, what are they using for tests?
The entire football stadium is 70,000 people.
Exactly. 70,000 people that they put one 5G system in. So that's kind of what we're
And it
fighting
does
up
it like
against.
nothing is the key. It's supposed to be like 10,000 times better than 4G.
Yeah.
Right.
It's I don't know if it's that big, but it's thousands. I think it's exponentially better.
So unfortunately, we're probably going to be on the tailing end of when that technology actually ends up getting rolled out. But we're still trying
Unless
to
they
fight.
need to test it in a hilly area, and there's no better hilly. We have dead spots on our radio still when you go down the bottom. on,
They don't want to
on
test it
others.
here because it won't get into the valleys either way.
What better way to figure out how to overcome it?
Don't get me wrong,
We'll see
but
how
if
it
you've got a Wi-Fi system that can go through the side of a mountain, I don't want it in my town.
But if they're
Because
pole,
it's going right through me too.
but I'm saying if there's pole mounted, they
I'm
have to
just
they have to
saying.
put them every so often, so
But I
they
mean,
can
like,
hit, they can hit certain
you
they
get
can
through the mountain,
learn
I don't want it.
they can learn off of town how to hit these
I'd
low
rather
points
just go back
strategically and
to
pick it
mail
up. And
carrier
what a
and
better way
pony.
to figure out what it does if
That
it comes
5G
someplace like this.
thing, it sounds a little
Hopefully.
ominous.
It would be nice if we can get it. We are, pursuing that option. It's just, it's not a very likely outcome.
Yep.
So that's my report on that, but I'll continue
I
on.
appreciate
I'll let
it.
you guys know after I talk with USDA.
So as you said though,
but it's
he
a-
hasn't forgotten.
But it's important to bring it up so that people know we haven't
Yeah.
forgotten too. And
No, I
we
agree.
do
No,
have-
it was a good point. I'm glad you
We
brought it
have
up.
discussions occasionally, and I'll stop and talk about things in the office too sometimes and ask and get updates and not necessarily think to put them on the agenda and share them with everybody. But-
We had many things on the agenda today. Some of it, in talking to Andrew, we both kind of agreed. We weren't necessarily saying, let's talk about it tonight, but it was put there to just help us remember these are things we're working, but we don't need to talk tonight. Say like the item part-time event coordinator.
Yeah, we can push that.
We talked about that a little bit, saying, is this something we might want to look into the budget to see how it might help us without having to bury Andrew with one more thing? You know what I mean? They can actually report to Andrew with what they're doing, not we ask Andrew, could you do all this?
Andrew might be controlling and like to have us just all that stuff. You don't wanna take things away from them.
He might,
Maybe.
but there's a nice.
Maybe not.
There's a nice benefit to distributing that to reduce
I know.
that centralized power.
The policy on posting online minutes, so if you guys look on the Board of Selectmen page, all the minutes are posted online. It's not in the My Town Government suite right now. It's just, if you go under Board of Selectmen, there's a link that says Board of Selectmen meeting minutes. If you click on that, they're all listed there.
So we have it on the website.
It is on the website, that's where it is.
Good.
Why is it not on My Town Government?
I just gotta link it correctly, because for that, you just have to, it had been done with a Google shared doc for so long, where it was just a drag and drop. For My Town Government, it's a little bit more of just an upload process. It's just
Okay.
whether or not you wanna duplicate every time that you drag and drop and upload. And we can go through it, but it's just gonna be a pain.
No, I got you,
can't
and
set
don't
an
get me
automatic
wrong,
link?
I know a lot went into My Town Government, but that also was before we had the type of website we now have. If we think everything that's been going through My Town Government can be put on our website, and we no longer need two separate websites for people to follow,
We still need My Town Government. I think it is definitely an important and very valuable tool, especially with the automatically scheduling meetings, the agenda posting. That's a very valuable asset that's not available with the website. And we knew that because we spent a little less on the website to not have that
all
part.
of that ability.
Right.
Okay.
So we basically married the two. It's just the fact that if you want the minutes, you gotta dig a little bit.
Can My Town Government have links put on each board's individual page or whatever it is?
We could do that, yeah.
You wanna
That sends you
hyperlink.
to our website saying, here's where you can get the minutes.
Yeah, we could do that.
Because that might be what you're saying, and
Yeah.
it saves you that uploading time. It's just drag, drop, you're done.
Yeah.
So if they go on
It's easier.
they go on and look for selectmen
Just
minutes,
make sure it's
it'll just
PDFs.
link them
Yeah.
over to the.
Yes, they all are. Yeah, so we'll take care of that. Over the last 2 weeks, we made sure that all the minutes were there. We just didn't make the move of making sure migrated to My Town Government.
Okay. And like I said, I have no problem doing the reverse as long as we're just telling people this is where you'll go find them. Because right now, it looks like every time you go there, you still just have to go to the town clerk for every board in the entire town. And that's where I got confused. Like, just confused.
Like, I understand.
Now I need to ask you, how do we work with other boards so that we can make sure that electronic access to meeting minutes are available timely? Or is this something we have to present on an article so that the town votes and forces all of us to do it?
Well, I think it's just a matter
I'm
of
even
us-
okay
I
if
think
it's
it's just a
60
matter of us
days to give them
forcing
2
our.
months of meeting time to get to it.
I would
I think
think
it's-
there
it's
must be laws that cover that already. There must be deadlines.
Not until they're approved.
No,
They can
and state
sit
must
forever.
have rules.
You still have to provide drafts if they're not approved with intent. I think if you do a public records request, minutes aren't ready, you have to at least provide the draft within 10 days. I think those are revised public records law.
Is that what they said?
I believe so. Even like the notes.
I believe everybody's
of
supposed to
of the
comply with a
clerk.
10-day request. from
Yeah,
user rights.
of her.
Mhm.
Our notes, because we don't draft meeting minutes,
They
are
probably
not
get-
public record.
No,
Yeah,
ours are
they
private.
probably get these, or, because what we started doing on the end of the minutes is saying, for a full detailed, record of this, please visit, the BCTV website and view the video. But I don't necessarily think passing a bylaw is gonna do anything more unless you put teeth into it, because we can easily just hold ourselves more accountable. Something I'll just have to take on my own and reinstill in all the boards and committees.
Well, and it may,
Right, but
it
what
may
I'm
be
trying to
giving
get
them.
at is, you and we don't have that authority over them, so we can't say,
Yeah.
you gotta do this. They'd be like, yeah, we know.
They may just need some guidance.
And I'm not knocking them,
Yeah.
they're busy, but
Right.
this is important to the rest of the town, is to know what's going on if I miss a meeting.
It may just be a skill they're not good at. I'm horrible at putting stuff down,
Mm-hmm.
getting it online. I would not be good at that. And maybe people just need help on how to do it. Hey, it's easy as doing X, Y, Z.
One thing I'm trying to do, and I've had it as my own personal goal, is to get some sort of internship program in here to focus on social media and online content. Because I think that'd be a great spot for somebody from the school that's looking for either community service hours or wants to get into digital content management when they go to college, to come in here and go updating stuff on the website, posting stuff on social media, updating the minutes, just providing that exposure in some sort of professional capacity. For, can't pay them, but it'd be, valuable for community service hours or something like that, but it's just a matter of drafting that scope. Just been on that to-do list for a couple months now, so.
Okay.
So
It's
that's
just
kind of,
something,
that's kind of what I'm
this
looking at.
adds to,
as-
like, if we do this thing with Ellen and the scanning of records, this is one thing, if we can get it going right, we don't have to dig out of the backlog.
Yeah.
Because we've just turned it into a
Just keep it-
routine
yep.
maintenance plan of approved, okay, within the next 3 days of an approved, somebody's getting it electronically scanned and set up.
I think that, if we try to go for like an internship program where that's what their job is to focus on online content management, that could be a really beneficial program for us, especially working in the school.
It could, but it'd be very inconsistent and unreliable.
I know, yeah.
So if that's the way we're at and it's talking about manpower, we need to look at what it's gonna cost to get someone to do the job. It's a responsibility of the town. And if that's how we're gonna have to do it, we just need to look and figure out what that cost is.
Okay.
So that's my request. I like Greg and Dylan, I just saying, if you could figure out what it would cost to get maybe a part-timer or.
I would
We're
say
talking about
use a
multiple
base-
part-time jobs going on at this point. We're gonna start to bump our budget. if we
Well,
start
if
to
we
talk it.
rewrite the job description as one full-time for multiple roles.
Maybe something like that.
Use
but
a
it's-
use a baseline of $5,000. Figure 10 hours a week at $14.50 an hour. Be about between $5,000 and $6,000.
Are we
That's
gonna
probably
get
what
the
we-
level of work we need for that type of help at $14 an hour? I doubt it.
That would-
If we want it to be efficient, we're gonna have to pay somebody that has some knowledge, a little more money to.
We're gonna
That's
have
what-
to
that's what
look
we're-
at the rest of our, before you say that, Greg, look at the rest of our classification plan and look at who we're paying
That's-
currently, 14, 15 bucks an hour.
That's what
I
the,
know, but this is,
Yeah.
part-time work only. It's not someone's full-time job in compensation insurance and where they can just do this. They have to go do something else. And there's, I've never understood the theory of paying a part-time worker less money per hour because he's part-time. They're not getting the insurance benefits, they're not getting the reliability, the stability. I used to always pay people more money part-time because I knew they'd come there and do a good job and I get the work out of them. And look at this the same way. If we want somebody that's gonna be effective and get a lot more done in a short time and gonna make sure they get something done with those hours, we might have to.
We'll just
Yeah,
have to
but
be
that means it's gonna be
consistent.
somebody qualified. It's not just we give some random person that money. It's gonna be someone that's qualified. It's proven themselves in that. And it could even be, I don't know, it could even be a county employee that comes with some overtime hours on a Saturday or something and gets a stipend to do it for, you know what I mean?
right.
We may have people that are qualified that would wanna do it for an extra chunk.
Yeah.
And then that's justified, because now they're coming on Saturday for 6 hours or something, that they're time and a half of that 6 hours anyway, so they're gonna get a bump and pay for that. It's another possibility.
All depends on who's interested.
All right.
Qualified, that's the whole, qualified and interested.
So, personally, I have nothing left I would like to discuss this evening. If you guys do, start with you, Greg, you can call it a selectmen's report or see anything else on here you didn't talk about you wanted to.
Nope, I've made a point, and I've already talked to Daniel about it some. I actually had a brief conversation with Steve Brewer about it as well. I've taken some time to go look at and evaluate the bandstand. And basically, structurally, I haven't got to go downstairs yet, but structurally, it seems sound. The stairs, obviously not, and that front hand railing, the right, not. There's a couple railings that could use re-bracketing to support them better. It certainly needs paint. And given the failing in the scale of the paint of failing in the roof, on the ceiling, I believe the roof should be addressed sooner, not later. Does that type of wholesale failing of paint down to the structure means water came through from the backside and pushed it off. Simple indication on that. The floor, although it has some those cracks in it, does feel solid. It doesn't shake, it doesn't move when you walk on it. So I would suspect when I go downstairs and look, I'll find that supporting structures, whether they're steel or wood, I don't know yet, but they're probably in good serviceable condition. Each of the columns that go around there, if you look at the roof line, then the column sits down in the base, and if you look where that base hits and look at the foundation below it, I expected to see stress cracks down through the rocks and things, that there was failing foundation. There is no sign of that. So the foundation, the main structure is sound. I don't see any real extensive work needed in any parts of this. The problem is, when you put the project out to bid, you're gonna get someone that's gonna come in as a general contractor with a supervisor license and hire out these crews, and every crew is gonna get prevailing wage. I had this experience when I got asked to give a quote for painting for Hubbardston's Center School years ago. I was at like $13,000 to scrape and paint all the trim on the whole school. Then they said, but you gotta pay prevailing wages. $39,000. Now I have to pay my guys $39 an hour. And they're not gonna work at the same rate. They're gonna slow down to make that $39 an hour last, and it just exponentially increases the price. My recommendation, Andrew, would be we look at maybe for this fall, sooner than later, look at getting the roof done. I don't know the dollar amount offhand, but we can expend a certain amount without going out to bid. And if you get an independent contractor, which is how I did a lot of work, where I go for Groton that way is, I can give a price as myself or a father and son business without paying prevailing wages. So I can go earn my regular hourly rate and not have to put this in at $90 or $100 an hour, or $150
Same way
an
the
hour.
guy I sent you the contact does.
Right, so, I mean, I would think if we get quotes for a roof down there, the square footage is small. Even if somebody went, $600 a square foot, what are we talking, 400 square feet, I would think this roof should be a $5,000 or less project to have the roof redone.
So what I did was.
And the concrete repair too, you get a mason to come out, it's gonna be one guy come out and just give you a price to fix the masonry stuff. And these individual per manual prices, we can pick off and I think get it fixed easily and inexpensively.
Right, so I sent it over to Matt. What I did was, after we had the conversation last week, I came up with pretty much what was a preliminary scope of work, but subdivided it by the trades. And basically said that we'll go out to bid, but you have to bid specifically per trade. And so if we get a roofer, you can bid just on the roofing. If you do masonry work, you could bid just on the masonry work.
And-
So that we're not looking for a general contractor to come in and say, we'll do X, Y, Z, unless they're willing to do it at, at a sub.
They're not.
Right, they're not. So
Um,
we can at least try to get some local contractors to try to bid on this and do it, say, I'm a roofer, I'm gonna bid at doing the roofing.
Right.
Rather than saying, I'm looking for a general contractor who's gonna sub out all the
And
subs.
some of the repair works don't necessarily need to be licensed contractor, but masonry work, especially the stair work, we should have a licensed mason.
Mhm.
Roof work is covered by code, we should have a contractor, licensed contractor. So I would think any of the repairs in this town structure, we want them to be licensed, and that's gonna drive the number up a little bit, but we don't wanna, some handyman comes and says, hey, I'll do the roof for $10 an hour. Hey, that's great, and he may do a great job, but if he's gonna do it, someone has to oversee him. Then technically, if someone's overseeing the job, now they're gonna pay him at the different hourly rate. You need someone with a license, that's an independent contractor, give you the price, just to watch out to be accurate on it.
Right.
I would think she's gonna require, not for painting, maybe not for masonry repairs, but she should want a permit pulled, and even though it's a town project, we should pull the permit and inspect it properly, because the town visits there and personnel go there in this public structure. Pull our internal permits, and I would recommend, we could offer to pull the permits, because we could probably line up a reduced structure, or whatever the fee goes to the town, for the town. I don't
We could
know.
waive the fee
Yeah.
for permits.
And we could also ask for quotes, and this is where I'd say we need to talk to Steve Brewer. He indicated this may still be funds left in
There is.
the trust group, that they would be, might
The
be
trust?
willing, it wasn't the
His
Barry's.
charitable trust,
Yeah,
you're
what
saying?
was it? What
Not
was it?
the,
I
not
thought,
the
well, he,
loan?
no,
Well,
no,
there
no,
is
he's,
some
the,
there.
no, the common committee, that he was
Yeah,
saying the
the
committee.
common
I think he
committee
said the
had
committee. But he also indicated before
an
that,
unspent authorization.
and he'd also said before we
Certain
was here,
amount.
that they spend so much a year out of their earnings on the interest from the endowment was left to
That's
them.
the charitable
The trust.
Right,
foundation.
and you never know if they might be willing to participate with that, but maybe at that end, if they could use money that is available from the common project, or that could go towards materials, we could also elicit these quotes without materials, just the labor cost to do it, and we supply the materials, because we can also buy the materials with no tax. You know, if the contractor buys it, they're paying 6% tax on it.
No,
Well, no, we
actually,
give them
if
the
you're
five-
writing the contract, you tell them that you're tax exempt and they can't charge you for the taxes, even if they're stupid enough to pay the taxes. Because they pass it on to the person they're buying it from.
If they're set up that way. See, I don't have a tax exempt account set with the state, so I have to pay my taxes and everything I buy. I can't buy a tax deferred unless I establish that with the state, and a lot of small contractors don't set that
Should we
up.
just give you?
Oh, yeah, even if,
I'm not tax exempt.
But if.
no, no,
So I
but we
have no-
are.
I know, but I
So
can't-
we contract you,
I
we
can-
give you our tax exempt certificate and you use that.
Or we
ST5C.
authorize the contractor to charge to
And
our
some,
town.
of even the ST2.
We authorize the
ST2,
contractor to buy on
just
our
go.
account in the town too. We could say, that you gotta buy them at this place.
But I
and
hear you,
then-
sometimes,
But that's-
sometimes you can get it cheaper
Yeah.
if you buy it yourself, you're
But
right.
I think, you know, that it's, I don't know, the stuff I experience at Groton, I think I get a better price than Groton does and things. I don't think they get any breaks.
I'm not
With-
surprised.
With a contractor, I get a break, but they don't pay the tax, and I really wonder sometimes if I just bought stuff and even paying tax, it might be cheaper than what they pay for this stuff, but I don't know for sure, but that might be a way to cut out the markup of materials, so most contractors, I never had, but most mark the materials about, you know, it's 100% markup, that's how you do it. If they pay $40 for them, 25 for the plywood, you're paying 50.
Yeah. What I
If we
think
say we supply it, then we get their actual labor costs, and we're really comparing apples to apples.
What we could do is basically put it out to bid with the note on it that it's still subject to appropriation based off the quotes, that we at
Just
least know.
remember though, if you roll it all into one bid,
Mhm.
I think we should
you
target the
can't,
roof.
you gotta accept it all or nothing. Whatever's bid. And you're not gonna, unless I misunderstood it, I got a little confused with, we're looking for an electrical contractor for the electric, this for that, not a,
Different,
that's gotta be,
separate projects,
every one of them's gotta be a separate bid.
exactly.
It
and
can't
separate
be into that one draft I saw.
Yeah, we can
No, no, no.
break that out.
Okay,
was
all right, I
gonna
just was
that's-
trying to
that's
make
what I-
sure,
yeah.
I thought you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was more of just to say, this is what
Specifically.
this is kind of what we're looking for, and I just kind of used what we did before, but we'll just say, this is the masonry one, this is the.
Now, if
No
we're gonna
one-
quote the roof, do we wanna go back to a metal roof, or do we wanna go to an asphalt roof and put an architectural on? Or do we wanna go with some
Or
sort
do
of?
we just want to repair
I
what,
wanna know the historical value, it's gonna have to go back the way it was.
I would say.
Check with the historical committee and see if
I
they're
would
going to.
suggest checking in with Lester and the historical
Because,
commission.
because they may be,
Because
metal
I think
roofs-
that's,
metal roofs
it's got
aren't
the
that
plaque
bad.
on it, so I don't know, I can't recall if it's a historical plaque or if it's just historical to Barre, not a registered historical.
I don't think it's registered, but I don't know again for sure.
But I remember that plaque
But
and I can't
we need
remember
to
if it's just
know-
referencing who donated
So we
what
need to
or-
know,
donated.
we need to know that before we ask for quotes, so they have to know what they have to use, even if we buy the material, you know, but I'd say let's get the roof done as a job, and let's get a quote to fix this, the danger is the stairs. I mean, I wanna go up there someday and pull
The
that
question
rail.
is the roof
It looks like it's some
broken
sort
or
of.
is it just, if it's a
It's gotta
metal
have-
roof,
it's
you
gotta
just
have a-
need to paint it?
They
Well, I
do
wonder
have a
if
metal
it's
paint they
patch.
put on it,
It might
but-
just need, it might just need to be patched. The way I wrote it in that spec was just that contractor to come and evaluate it, make necessary
Right.
repairs to.
It's
prevent
just
any
that one
additional-
portion when you see, because I didn't go up, I didn't bring a ladder, I didn't go up on the roof
I'm
and look
with
at
you, I
the
haven't
roof.
been able to get up enough
To
to see
look at
the
that paint
integrity
failing
of the roof.
wholesale in just sheets, that means the wood behind it was wet, and that's what makes the paint release, when the wood comes in, water comes in back and soaks through it. So anytime you see something with wholesale failure down to bare wood,
It's a
that's
moisture pushing
moisture.
it out, yeah.
If you see a house that's been freshly painted, and you see big sheets of paint coming up with the still paint on there, that's a dissimilar coatings. They put a latex over an oil and it peeled off, but the old oil's stuck. But when you see it go down to all the way to bare, that means that there's moisture flowing through for some reason. And if the house is 150 years old, it's not just the moisture from the house, it's something that in somewhere that suddenly causes this issue.
Coming up through the foundation, who knows?
No, it's
Varies.
it always comes down. It doesn't rise up that much
Oh,
to
in my
peel
house, it
wholesale.
completely, because I got a dirt floor, everything.
No, that adds to
And
it.
an open field stone foundation, so water just, I'm just suggesting,
But there's.
if it's
yeah.
250 years old, it might be what I
There's-
just said.
I've done the painting in there for a long time, but the structure didn't scare me. The structure I was surprised it looked that solid. I don't see any stress cracks under the pole where it hits the base. I don't see any stress cracks in the foundation underneath that. So, I mean, structurally, and I think it's absolutely fine. So cosmetics, painting, I'm gonna look into myself. There's some paint strippers I've used in the past. Rather than scraping all that paint and having the dust on the leather shoes, this paint stripper is a wet application. It goes on as a gel. It soaks through the layers of paint, reacts with the wood substrate, and literally just, the paint falls off like the consistency of a popped balloon.
Okay.
And it stays wet, it doesn't generate dust. And actually, years ago when this product came out, they were featuring on this whole house. And the DEP came in because they were doing all this lead stuff without taking all these precautions. And they examined the product and approved them to keep going. It is very safe, it's non-toxic, it's biodegradable.
Self-encapsulated.
It's great. You put it on, it comes off wet. And, you don't have to do anything. You wash the house, you have to wash it after just to paint it, but it's ready to go. And you don't have to go after it and take every bit of paint off. You need to get the loose stuff off, the alligator stuff off. And the other option is there's a primer called Mad Dog Primer that's designed to go into cracks and fissures. When it gets into those cracks, it's almost like an adhesive to the paint behind the cracks and prevents that edge from peeling back more.
Yeah.
And the second thing it does is it tends to fill the voids in, so when you paint over it, a lot of those alligator marks sort of smooth out. Not 100%, but unbelievably so. They really change. I did that at Groton's Town Hall. It's the first time I got that product, and I couldn't believe what it did to some of those boards to make them look
All right.
really nice. But the smaller projects, I'm gonna probably pull the handrail off and make a new piece and copy it and put it back on myself, on the right side of the stairs. I'm just gonna take the damn thing off one of these days and make one and put that back. As far as fixing the handrails and structures, I can go up there, we can have people come maintain someday, but it's metal brackets that are loose and bent and misshapen, and just need some re-supporting. I didn't see any rot in those rails of the wood other than that first piece. And if I can get the stripper, it was unavailable for a couple of years. I think it's back in the market and available from a new manufacturer. If I can get a test sample, I'll go try calling with it someday and let you guys know if it does what I think it will. Something that if we got the product donated, because this stuff is expensive. It's gonna run about $40 a gallon for this. But you probably need.
That's almost the cost of any gallon of primer these days. Price just
Well,
went
no,
through the
primer, the
roof in the
stripper,
last five-
the stripper, I mean.
Well,
And
yeah,
the-
but I
and
mean,
the
it's like the
stripper-
cost of primer, it's just now you're priming
Well,
twice, you're stripping priming in a
Well,
way.
and it only goes 150 square feet, it doesn't go 400 square feet. It goes on
Oh.
thick because it has to stay wet. But it's, once again, if you were 8 gallons, you're $300 or $400 a stripper, maybe that, it's not outrageous.
You're also not talking about a 2,300 square foot home.
Right, and it's
You're talking
something,
about a little gazebo.
it's something I can go do in a weekend sometime, go up there, I'd mask it off with plastic, just come right around the plastic to the bottom and just spray it all, let it drop down and peel it up and be done.
So good luck with that. Only advice is just any type of repair you think you're gonna do, just make sure that you don't cross somebody's jurisdiction and they wish you would pull the permit.
No, the only thing I wanna do is look at that handrail and see if I can do, right now it's off, so taking it away is not a big deal. It's doing nothing. You can't use the stairs. We should have the stairs blocked off somehow in the meantime, because those broken stair treads, someone get hurt. We should really, that's something we
The
should.
handrail fell enough that the caution tape is got nothing to hold on to anymore?
Pretty much.
Okay.
There's two
I hadn't
eye,
looked
The right
recently. I
hand- the
remember
right
there's
hand-
usually
Two eye
caution
rings.
tape at the end of the handrail.
yeah, we
Now
just
I-
gotta get a piece of chain because there's two eye hooks there. We can just.
That right-hand handrail is just, it's doing nothing. It's separated from, the post is separated from the rail and it's rotted off and it's coming off. So my thought is if I could pull off the section of it, I could try to go home and copy it in the barn and make a new molding that would match it and get something back in place.
All right.
Um,
So I appreciate the effort you've been putting in with multiple people
And if-
Andrew
I
to try to
I will let you
get a
talk
plan on this.
with building and see if they mind if we pull that right-hand handrail off and replace it. parts, not talking about the whole structure and all the guards, just addressing that one, repairing that one rotted handrail. And it won't be anything other than repairing that rail. So we're not removing and replacing totally, we're replacing the components we have to, so we're not putting a new structure in that has to meet the new code height, we're just trying to fix what's there. So I may take
And that's
it-
the only reason I said talk
Right.
to her, because
So
she
my
would be
intention
much
is-
more open to a
My-
permission, not.
My intention is to
forgiveness
take it out
effort.
so I can recondition
So
it
it's-
and repair the rotten parts and put it back in, not replace it with a new railing. So that's the key. This is a repair, it's not a replace, so it shouldn't need a permit and code, and we just wanna make sure that she understands if it disappears, it's not because there's a brand new one coming, it's going to the shop to be worked on, so I can make the component parts that are rotted and replace those pieces.
Okay. The only other thing I had that wasn't on here too, I've been working with Liz Martin, and we went up to Lyman Signs. We're working on designing a new sign for this building, Henry Woods building out front.
We need one?
Other than a little brown sign that's out front. Something a little bit more representative of the community.
Sure, now you're the administrator here, so you want it to look fancy, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, well,
You don't wanna be
waiting for some-
embarrassed by our little building?
waiting for some pricing back, and we'll see where this goes. Just basically some decorative, because we're looking at replacing that sign and replacing the directory out front with, a Joshua that actually shows where the,
Where
This
the
is what
office-
I
where the-
propose.
Where the offices are now?
yeah.
We put it out there. We ask for people to submit finished signs that will be
compete.
presented at annual town meeting, and the town will vote on which one gets hung out front.
And they get their name signed
And
on
it
it.
doesn't matter who in town, we could have 20. One gets presented and 19 get burned in a big town bonfire. And we say, thanks for your effort, but we didn't like you. No, I'm just joking, everybody. But the idea is also another option. Something like that, or even similar to, we gotta figure out, and I may have asked you, sorry, I'm jumping here, which means I'm getting tired. Signage bylaws and control of what's going on in our common and signage. We need to get a hold of the Lions Club and figure out about that big sign they've got where at one point it was just heart healthy community and we're all good with it, and now it seems to become a Barre Lions Club billboard.
I
And they
thought-
don't have that right to do that on our common without approval,
I
and we need
thought
to
that
clarify
anybody,
how that's going.
I thought anybody that put signs in the common, even I remember when my son was in ROTC and they used to put the spaghetti dinner signs out, they came to the board to get permission to put that sign
Nobody's
out.
come to us
It's one of
for I don't know
it's
how
one of
long.
those policy aspects, not necessarily a bylaw, so we'll have to.
We may have signage bylaws. I'd be surprised if we
We
don't.
gotta look into it. It depends on the type of signage bylaw. I think the signage bylaws we have are zoning ones that talk about like
Business.
business signs,
Right.
not temporary activity
But
event signing.
zoning may even have something on that for, like campaign signs are allowed to be out in the public way, but they have to come down the day after the or the day of, within 24 hours of the campaign, I believe it was, right? There
But
may
I
be-
do think we need to address this, whether we need to actually create a bylaw
If there
or
is
some type of policy, we need to make sure that
temporary signs.
any signage that isn't on the face of a business, that is on town property, has to go before the Board of Selectmen to get a sign put up.
They do it for telephone poles, don't they?
If it's on town property, they should come to us before they can put them.
I agree.
You have to also identify who the enforcing authority would be on that.
It would be us,
Well, I mean, who's going to be the one to go out there and take the sign down?
whoever we ask, as long as we're aware of it.
I'm
And the
just-
reason I
I'm
say
just
that is
putting
I
that
don't
out
want
there.
it to be like the building
DPW, they have a
commissioner
truck
and
and
then
they're all
find
around
out.
town.
I think
We could
that's-
easily just ask Tony Musnicki to go pick it up and bring it to us, please, while you're driving down the street.
Well, DPW.
You know what I
is-
mean? That's why I don't wanna get lost in
Right.
who versus whoever the board assigns at that day at time.
Right, I just don't want it to be in, well, hey, that guy just took my sign that I paid for.
Well, then they only take it when they actually have written direction from the Board of Selectmen to do so. And then they can say, Board of Selectmen said,
Mhm.
because don't get me wrong, if someone throws up a sign and it's gone in a day, we're not gonna do anything about it anyway, because it's gonna be so fast, we're not gonna get
It's
to
gotta
it.
take us 2 weeks.
It's gotta make a point of, it's been there for months.
Well, and the other option, depending if it becomes such a nuisance, that you could set a policy that when signs appear without the board's approval, they can be just removed at the administrator's discretion if something just shows up, so. I don't think we're at that point that we're having that much of an issue with it, but if it got to that point that people just started randomly playing their game and sticking them up, signs up for a week, you just, authorize the administrator that if they don't have our approval, that they get removed at his discretion with our authority under his discretion, established once. We'll talk about that more.
So, we need to keep that on an old business agenda so we can continue to grow on it and build something off it, because we should do something about it, that's all I'm saying. It's similar to the
Yeah.
special events permit, there was no rule, but we
Yeah.
were acting on things without it.
I do drive
And I
by,
remember a signage issue that blew up in our face for a good almost year and a half during the whole recall election process, and everybody's signs everywhere. Everybody was pulling signs from everybody, and everybody got mad about every temporary election sign, and
yeah, well, that was a heated issue, wasn't it?
so that's
Yeah.
why I actually didn't put signs unless it
But
was on
I-
private property, and they said I could.
I
'cause
have-
could avoid that discussion.
I have thought many times driving through the common, like, I don't remember approving that sign. Several times I say it to myself. I never thought to come in and say anything about it, but I've thought that often driving through the common saying, oh, what's this up there for?
I mean, technically, it's a use of town property.
It is. So, yeah, if there's no policy, we should establish it.
In a way, we could say that use of town property is the policy. We could use that avenue. I'd rather just see if there's a better approach, that's all. So this is why we just added to an agenda. We'll
I
talk
would
more.
never expect that I could just go put a sign on any town's property without expecting to have to get approval first. I don't know why anybody would feel that way. I like to think I'm pretty normal in my thought process, and I wouldn't just assume I could
Other
go.
people look at it as that's the public domain, and they can put whatever they want.
Or they talked to someone else that's on a different board in town, and they felt that that person said it's okay, and so they felt they were doing okay.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, it doesn't, I'm not even saying the person that told him it was okay was wrong. I'm just saying that that was the impression, and so it happened.
There's been a lot of signage, there has been a lot of signage up in the common in the last several months, that's not been authorized, absolutely.
Okay. If you're okay, though, I am going to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Any further discussion? Call for vote.
Aye.
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 How's Sandy doing?
Did you need something signed?